Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Dr. 𝗣𝗟𝗡𝗧.
And today, we are going to be going over Planet Fist from Jess, Levine, and Jumpgate Games. This is a hack of Fist, kind of. I love that logo on the front of the book. Yeah, I dig it. Hello, Jess from online. Jess is going to be in our chat tonight. So for those listening on podcast or on YouTube later, we might reference it to just ask questions. We actually really love when the creators are in our chat. It happens, sometimes frequently. And it's great when we have rules clarification questions or just feel dumb and they can hop in and say, hey, actually it's this. And it's like, that's actually reasonable. My brain was just not working right. So thank you so much for being here, Jess. Again, we're going to be going through Planet Fist. This is a narrative tactical PBTA war game loosely based on Fist. In the context of like,
it's fairly fisty, you know?
It's yeah. So I'm gonna just not do any of the jokes. Nothing that just ran through my head. We're gonna let that go. So that's it. That's what we're gonna be doing. Hunter, how you doing, man? I feel like
so good. I can't even describe in words how good I'm doing.
You look that good, buddy.
Thanks.
So we used to do Kickstart the podcast for 45 minutes and still had less than 3-hour episodes. How do we not have less than 3-hour episodes and we don't do 45 minutes on Kickstart the podcast?
They're less than 3 hours now. They definitely are. They're like 2:30, you know?
We've had some hour and a half long episodes.
Hey, listen. I'm all for it. Am I losing focus again? I'm talking.
You are losing. You're losing a little focus. So,
hey, now.
I will say recently we did do or I did because you were sleeping, a Kickstarter like project spotlight episode where we looked at a bunch of projects that are crowdfunding across multiple platforms. And I really like doing it and I miss doing that. So I think we are definitely going to come back to do it again. Yeah. I think a monthly episode is going out there because the reason I wanted to do it at that time is there are so many. I did 14 projects an hour and a half, and that scratched the surface on the number of awesome projects that are out. And there's always good stuff out, but right now they just seem like a whole lot of really, really great stuff. One of which is Planet Fist. It's still itch funding until the end of November. And there's a Planet Fist game jam going on right now. I think you can enter until, is it next Sunday, Jess, or is it? Or is it today? I don't remember.
I'm gonna Google Planet Fist Jam and hope what I'm looking for comes up.
Sunday the 26th. Look at how great it is to have people in chat. So definitely check that out. Definitely go check out our Project Spotlight episode. A lot of those projects are still in the process of funding. So definitely go take a peek through that. But today we're just gonna hop right into Planet Fist. Like I said, this is a narrative war game PBTA, which speaks directly to my right into exactly what I want from a game. If I were to ever put one out, if I was working on one on my own, there would definitely be facets of, I wouldn't call it PBTA, but that's a conversation for another day, of a 2d6 mixed success, a little bit of tactical action going on. But we're not talking about my game. We're talking about Jess's. So let's fucking do it. And here it is. Planet Fist.
We're here.
I dig the cover. Yeah. As a hack of a game, I think this does such a great job of taking the really good parts of it, hacking it to be something different, and like being its own, but still having so many like heavy nods to the original game. Because this is clearly a play on the original logo.
Yeah.
But that was an assault rifle on the cover, like kind of like interposed over Fist, and this is definitely looks to me like some type of like space gun. You know what I mean?
I mean, hey, listen, I'm as a native Texan, we all know how knowledgeable I am about firearms, and I can tell you for sure that's a gun. So
yeah, but doesn't it look more spacey to you? Don't you see Starship Troopers having this more than like, Joe in like, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna. Anyway, yeah, no, but yeah, technically it's a real rifle. It's a blow-up rifle, but it famously for sci-fi people. There you go. Yes, so on purpose, the rifle looks a little bit more sci-fi, which you'll see why in just a moment. So Jumping into it again, I love the compatible with fist kind of logo in the front, because it's definitely like a fist hack, definitely taken into a different direction. So right off the bat, though, you can tell the layout is very fist themed, but there is a little bit more sci-fi aspects to it. Like the kind of like folder pieces have like the bars and stuff like that. It has just a tweak towards a little bit more sci-fi than like the kind of like post Cold War.
Yeah, there are some very nice boxes and page breaks layout wise that the original Fist does not have, that this one benefits from greatly.
Oh yeah. I think they also do what Fist does, though, and do a really good 2-column versus 3-column grid back and forth. So that like on this, we're looking at the credits page here. It's in 2 columns. But much like Fist, most of Fist layout is in a 3-column layout, where 2 of those columns, like the text fills up both, and then the 3rd column has like instructions and things like that. This one goes back and forth between a 2 or 3 in a really clean way. And I think the layout is definitely positive. It definitely takes the Fist layout and kind of even bumps it up maybe a little bit more for utilization. So big old credits page here. A lot of credit to other creators, and it's always great to see creators, designers, editors, Jess Levine, I'm going to say Victor Seitch, 𝗣𝗟𝗔𝗡𝗧, aka Claymore. And then there are links to all of it says personnel records. It's links to all of those people's itch pages, websites, Twitters, like all of those things. Playtesters, Ludology, which is like a list of other people's, games and stuff. And then the special thanks to people like Lone Archivist, who it sounds like Jess got most of the vector art from, and like the assets, as well as a bunch of other people. So love to see this page. Great to see it. And then just kind of an explanation. It's a game from Jess Levine, otherwise known as Jess from Online. Planet Fist is a conversion hack of Fist Ultra Edition by Claymore. It uses Fist, etc., etc., etc. CC BY SA 4.0. Great. Everything. Table of contents. Love to see it. Looks great.
Amazing. A lot of subsections in this, and I appreciate it for that. Very easy to reference.
Yeah. The completely bookmarked, completely hyperlinked, and we'll get to it in a minute, but everything is hyperlinked, including inline hyperlinks, and there's even a thing that says, just so you know, you can click on every number in the book and it will take you there. It's good to have that in there, so because some people don't navigate PDFs as much as we do, I don't think. But us. I gotta drop that hyperlink merch. But they're hyperlinked.
Yeah.
So table of contents, we got an intro, principles of play, setting and factions, how to play, setup and creation, so character creation, advancements, how to referee, and a command console. So before we get to the introduction stuff, do we want to preface with a little bit of the conversation we had pre-stream, or do we want to like hit that as we go?
I think let's hit it as we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to have a conversation?
Maybe just like a pre, like, okay. Or how about let's do what we do sometimes, is your initial impressions in just like a line or two, like what you're, and then because a lot of times when we do this show, we both, by the time we finish going over it together, because we don't do any of this prior. Every time we go through this together, it's the first time we're going through together on the show, although we take notes on our own, and we like doing that because a lot of times like our views are very similar. I'd say like 85% of a Venn diagram, but sometimes that extra 15%.
Good job.
By the time we finish the game, we both have like a slightly different perspective and can kind of like or like something a little bit more or something a little less as we go through. So your initial impression, like short, just a quick one or two, and I'll give mine.
This is a really good Fist hack. It's not really, I mean, it takes a lot of stuff and does its own thing. My one thing going through is that there's a lot of like fluff flavor in everything. Almost to the point of being like a little bit too much sometimes, especially like reading through abilities during character creation. But other than that, that's what do you got?
Gotcha. No, I see. And we were talking about this a little bit before stream started, where I think that's completely reasonable. I just don't think it bothers me as much, but I do think there are times through this game, in a much lesser degree than a lot of PBTAs, but the general curse of the PBTA, which is the need to explain a lot because it's not an OSR game. It's not just D20 roll stats. So like intentions for play, how the creator would run it. There's a lot of that throughout, which doesn't bother me because I do think PBTA, not in this, but compare this like Apocalypse World or Blades in the Dark. My God, like get rid of like 80% of that book. I think this one is like right at the edge for me of, I think the explanations are great. And if it's the first time you're playing a PBTA, I think most of them are really necessary, but it's kind of like right at that peak of like games in general with like just a lot of explaining. But again, I like it. I don't think it's too much. I just think it is something that a lot of PBTAs have. If you read a lot of PBTAs, you're gonna have people really just explaining a lot because it is not just a basic system. So that's my general thing is like, I totally get where you're coming from. It just doesn't bother me as much, but yeah. And then we'll see that as we go. So introduction, Planet Fist. I don't know if I'm gonna read all this. We'll see how much I read. Is set on the planet of, I read it as Six Aura. Is that how you read it?
I read it as Six Aura as well. And however we say it as we go through, that's how we're saying it. That's how we do it. So a faraway world cut off from the rest of the galaxy by a destroyed Jumpgate, now ruled by 3 empires. There is the Libertarian New Committee, the Orthodox Fascist Tyrant Council, and the Techno-Supremacist Valiant Ascendancy. These ruling bodies fight an unending, in truth unwinnable war for control of their new forever home. This endless march of murder and death is sustained by nanotech, a scientific breakthrough first made on Six Aura. Six-Aura scientists perfected the art of replicating known substances with programmable nanos and continued their research until the machines crossed the final barrier, flesh itself. So basically, everyone on Six Aura is just a bunch of nanobits, and they're all clones. So it's a great, it's a really great narrative way to explain. We'll get to everything that you can like come back from the dead and stuff. But it's very funny that they're like, oh, that's perfect, you know?
Yeah. I really like the consistency throughout. Nothing feels like, well, that does make sense. Like everything feels like it kind of has an explanation, and you're like, and it's a cool one, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another paragraph here that's basically about the same thing. Like you have no original bodies and you're fighting a war that you're never going to win for a place that you're never going to get to live in. And that sucks for you. A lot of technical drawings throughout, very Fist-like, but a little bit more sci-fi bend. And then, there's another paragraph. Again, this is all great flavor. Read all of this. I'm not going to read it all right now. But at every hour of every day on Six Aura, soldiers of each empire are killed and reborn in an endless loop. Their bodies de-resing as the bonds between the nanos dissolve. And that's kind of the core game loop is basically like you fight to die, you de-res, and then you keep fighting. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. You hit your respawn point, you know, you drop back in with the boys, you know, bust out of the gulag. And it's really nice. There's this nice little page break table on the right-hand side that takes a bunch of it. Listen, if you're going to do black and white layout, do stuff like this. Because it's nice to be like, cool, half of it's white text on a dark background that I get to look at.
Which honestly, just it makes the eyes feel so much nicer. Every time I see a big black section, I'm like, it feels like a little bit of a break. Like I get a little breather from the bright white, you know? Yes. Completely reasonable to do white, but yes, I love this white background with big black boxes. Like Gangs of Titan City uses it really well. Like Die Sugars uses this really well. And then I'm blanking on the name of it. It's a game that I went over with Kirby that you would love. And I can't remember. No. It's the one, the logo has like a yellow sun on the front. It's about being in like that hotel that like goes on forever, but you're like robots inside it, and then it's like there's a future. I don't know.
We're on our own really tangent now, y'all.
But they do a similar thing where it's white, but any of these side boxes, you know, or sections at the bottom is a black bar that really helps break the game up. Anyway, this is a good layout, good fucking layout. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, big black boxes, BBBs.
Yep, BBBs. So there's a statement of intent here. It basically says like this is all satire. Like Starship Troopers is satire. Planet Side 2, which I've never even heard of before I read this. Apparently, you know what it is.
I do. Yeah.
It says this is all satire, but there's a bunch of fucking people, because human beings are terrible, that take the satire of Starship Troopers and apparently Planet Side and like the whole like fascist piece of shit empire thing, like not as satire, and actually want to just be fascist empire people.
It really is totally a thing. It's such a valid put. Because I definitely was thinking Starship Troopers going through this, and like that's such a valid criticism of like that like satires that people just didn't understand that it was satire. It's like, no, this is like
How do you not understand it? Satire. Is there, am I missing anything besides like the movies? Is there a game that's not the movies? Or the movies Starship Troopers? Is there more than I think there is?
Well, I think there's video games and stuff, but there is like, I mean, there's a 3 or 4 Starship Trooper movies. The first one's the only one that's real.
The original book wasn't satire, apparently. Well, the movie, you could tell they have like the cutaway like commercials and stuff, and it's just like, how can you not tell it's satire? But I'll have to read the original book. So basically, it says if you're a fascist douchebag, fuck off. Don't play this game. Like if you're going to use it to be a eugenist fascist, fuck off. Which for the one person who keeps commenting left-wing gamers on our Spotify, no fucking shit, dude. Like 117 episodes in, and all we say is use safety tools and ACAB. Like, who the fuck do you think we are? Like, yes, we're left-wing gamers.
That's such a funny thing to put.
Side note, we're left-leaning socially, but at the end of the day, politically, both the left-wing and the right-wing are required to actually get that corrupt, bloated, post-dystopian capitalist America up in the air. They're both, regardless. So,
God bless USA. Pray for our troops.
So, man, the coffee and Adderall hit at the same time.
Yeah, I was saying, what is this game, Ryan? Tell me what this game is.
This is a PBTA narrative war game. If you're unfamiliar with PBTA, it's a tabletop game system designed by Meg Baker and Vincent Baker. Hey, if you're unfamiliar, just go watch our last episode, our episode 2 episodes ago, where we went over Apocalypse World, which spawned PBTA. And it is narrative war game. This is a section that kind of explains that is a little bit, what's it called when it's like two opposite things they're trying to say together? It's not okay.
Oxymoron?
Or not oxymoron, but like there, it's a little bit anachronistic when you think of like war game and narrative. Yeah. Contradictory. Yeah. So, but it makes sense. And this is a style of game that I really, really enjoy. Is a game that leans a little bit more tactics. It uses 2d6, which is my favorite system, but it has a heavy emphasis on narrative, which we'll go over. But that is what this is. This is a narrative PBTA war game. Oh, literally the next paragraph starts with these seemingly contradictory terms are meant to communicate. It is a game of constant combat, but that is not at the expense of roleplay, which we will go over length as we go through this. So definitely read through the principle of the play, which is one of the next things. It says Planet Fist is also a PlanetSide 2 inspired total conversion hack of Fist. Again, I'll have to go check out PlanetSide. Sounds cool. We'll see what it is. But instead of a paranormal Cold War setting, it is a far-flung future dystopia, which again we'll go over in a little bit. I do like these Admiral's notes on the side. I think they're almost all of them are really good information mixed in with some like really funny bits of flavor from Jess, or just like discussion about the game, which is great. And this first one says Admiral notes. Hey, me again. It's the man in this manual. I've left you a few Admiral's notes. They offer commentary, optional rules, and explanations of my design intent in order to assist you in realizing my vision of the game or empower you to make informed changes to it. If you're feeling so bold, they also crack jokes, etc. So I love those. I think they're great. And they're interspersed between more art. So Fist had more white sections in the columns, which didn't bother me because it was like the 3-thing column. But this one very rarely has any blanks. Almost the entire page is either filled with notes, 2 columns, 3 columns, or schematics on the side. There's like basically none. How do I use this book? If you're playing for the first time, you should make sure to read the principles of play on page 6. Read the rules portion of the player section on pages 6 to 25, and skim the list of character creation options on pages 26 to 39. If you want more advanced rules, go to the advanced rules section. We'll get to that. There's a section on refereeing, etc. And then at the bottom it says, note, page numbers in this PDF are clickable links. It's good to tell people that. Inline hyperlinks are fantastic. Oh, it's a laser tag. Oh, this one up here? Yeah, it looks like a laser tag pistol. The schematics on the left. Love that. Every single one. And individually too. So 6 to 25, you can click on 6 or 25, and it works. So principles of play. We start with another Admiral's note on the side. It says, you might find yourself thinking, these are only tips and advice. I can probably skip over these and get straight to the crunch, right? One question, soldier. Did you learn how to use a grenade by immediately pulling the pin? No? So if you read anything in this manual, read these. So the principles of play are death is life, Shootouts are stories and fiction first. So really important. Just to touch on those a little bit, it says, don't fear death, soldier. So there's a nice like mix, I think, of the technical language of the game and explaining, but still has a little bit of that flavor, like exactly like that. Mm-hmm. Don't fear death, soldier, and things like that. There's little hints at it where it's not like telling necessarily going all the way into a character telling it, but it's a nice mix. What game did we do before? Oh, it was the conversational Apocalypse one. So anyway, pain is temporary, war is forever. Everything's a move. I'm moving right now. If you play Planet Fist, trying unconditionally to stay alive, you're missing out on the fun bits. Basically, you're going to die a lot, and that's the game. Shootouts are stories. So this is a section where it really talks about leaning into the narrative of the game and how that's kind of like the core of the game. Consider your character's actions in battle, express their personality and relationships, etc. Great section. Fiction first. Don't let the rules fool you. The story precedes them. As a player, try not to look at a combat turn as a movement and an attack. Instead, tell your referee what you think your character would try to do in this scenario, and they'll help you determine what exact combination of actions and roles best capture that intent. That's how, in my opinion, that's how pretty much all TTRPGs should be.
I agree.
I think that a lot of rules don't a lot of games make assumptions that that's how it should be, and you end up with people doing a lot of not that. So I do like that it's in here a bunch, but it is kind of like, and it is like over and over again. Make sure you narrative.
I'm gonna make a charisma check to convince you you're wrong.
Yeah. I hate when people ask, well, then can I do a search roll or something? And I'm like, just tell me what you're doing. Just say I search for shit, because guess what? If it's on the table, I'm just going to say, yeah, you find that thing. Like, stop asking me if you can do a roll.
You rolled too low. You can't see the table.
Oh my God. Stop asking me if you can do a roll. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you if it requires a roll.
But yes, great thing to put into, every game. But yes.
Yeah. But specifically in this one, because it is a tactical war game, making sure that that's kind of drilled into people to not just fall into the tactics is important. So getting into settings and factions, I will say the setting and factions to me, and I don't know if it's the same for you, it feels a little bit like Destiny meets 1984.
Yeah, I get that. I get that feel. Yeah. There
were the three factions. The one was literally like the robot faction. Mm-hmm. One was like the New Monarchy, and then one was like the Death People, which obviously Dead Orbit for life. Sure. And then the mottos. You never played Destiny? Chris and I.
We
Chris
played Destiny. I just don't know anything about it.
Chris and me were. So yeah, apparently this is ripped straight from PlanetSide. So I guess I would like PlanetSide. So anyway, so there are three factions. There is the new committee, which we'll go over in just a second, but the motto is freedom through profit. It's got the tallest spire. It's the insignia is a tall spire. It's blue and beige. I like they're color coded. And then there's architecture is glass, concrete, motivational posters. I love that.
I do like their color because they all have a color too. Like, it's a good one.
I kind of wish that these sections had maybe were like a kind of a colored folder tab, but then it would kind of break up the black and white. I was curious how it would look, but I don't think it would work. But I did like the idea in my head for a second. The vision of the new committee is to guide by the optically cloaked hand of the free market. So we'll go over them a little bit more in a second, but I wanted to hit all these individually. Tyrant Council. Motto is peace through war. The insignia is the Warhawk in flight. Yeah, right. Colors are purple and gold, and the architecture stone, columns, and grotesques. The vision promises its clone soldiers that if they fight long enough, one day they'll return home to a family they've never had in a nation they've never lived in. And I dig that. So these are your. The new committee is your corporate boys. The Tyrant Council are your war boys.
Your war clones. Your potato-looking war clones from Doctor Who.
Then you got the Velian Ascendancy, which is humanity through technology. Insignia, the boundless circuit. The colors are black and green, and the architecture is carbon, cables, and exposed circuitry. And the Ascendancy promises the soldiers that if they completely surrender bodily autonomy and submit to at-will VA gene mods, they'll overcome the drudgery of Sexauran work life and reach their full potential as human beings. So the mottos are humanity through technology, peace through war, and freedom through profit. And that feels very much like a bit of 1984 with the ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery, war is peace, which I really love the satire of all of it anyway. So the history, in a brief rundown, basically there was a colony way out there by Jumpgate where six or half dozen, but yeah, six corporations like owned it and were colonizing it and making money. And at some point the Jumpgate broke for whatever reason.
As Jumpgates do, you know?
Yeah. And what happens when you have an entire system of just workers who create stuff to be shipped away so that other people can consume it? Well, when you lose the consumers, you have no economy. So everything went to shit. The entire economy collapsed. And once the economy collapsed, the 𝗣𝗟𝗔𝗡 stepped in and basically did like a quasi-military coup, because obviously when the corporations who basically owned everything already, when suddenly they were cut off from everything, they became the de facto government. The 𝗣𝗟𝗔𝗡 Council stepped in militarily, tried to overthrow them. They failed, but in the attempt were able to capture a lot of facilities and stuff from the 𝗣𝗟𝗔𝗡𝗧 corporations. The corporations ended up becoming the new committee. So the six joined forces. They basically put a command together and they became the new committee. The 𝗣𝗟𝗡 Council, which was kind of the failed coup but successful like uprise in power, became the 𝗣𝗟𝗡 Council. And then one of the responses to that was a rise of the 𝗣𝗟𝗏 Ascendancy, which is a bunch of scientists that came up with the nanotechnology that ended up creating the nano soldiers eventually. So they rose to power through their science, and that's how we got to the three factions that we have right now. That's the gist of it, but the actual story for the history is really good. You should definitely read that. So how to play. What do you do? So each player takes on the role of an undying soldier in the service of 6 hours, 3 factions. Together, the player characters comprise a single unit. Instead of a party, it's called a squad. And there's also a referee. I love when games use referees, not game masters.
Me too. I think I recently was thinking about this for a reason else. I was like, oh, I do prefer, because for a while I was like, I don't care. Like, I think I prefer a referee, you know? No one's master. It sounds weird.
Yeah. I like referee or facilitator or something that like specifically, or you know what I really love is when people are able to turn like GM or DM into something like game specific, like the Dark Master, or you know what I mean? Like, I love that kind of stuff.
I like in UVG where you're a cat. So
the Game Master's a cat? Has it been a while since I read UVG? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, then there you go. I don't, because cats are terrible, but, you know. So campaigns typically proceed as a series of missions assigned to your squad by your faction's command, delivered to you by your squad's CO. Most missions involve capturing or defending a facility, though some referees might buck this format and design more free-form missions. So really, the kind of core of the game is... really about getting a mission to go take a facility. So there's not a lot of freeform world exploring. You're not going to be doing a lot of hex crawling. You're really just going to be given a mission and then kind of taken from there. So it really is wargame inspired, tactical inspired. At the end of the day, like we talked about this a little bit before stream started, this is it's a skirmish game.
Yeah,
like there's a definite like push through some of the BPTA aspects and through a lot of the direction and explanation. But to me, I would say the closest, at least feel of this game is Forbidden Psalm, in that it is a role play heavy game.
Yeah, I get it. It's less like it's less crunchy, but it is definitely like a skirmish game, you know?
Yeah. 100%
would you want to play this on a grid?
I mean, yeah, it's instructed over and over throughout to like play on a grid, but
I don't know. But I ignore that a lot, honestly. So
yeah, but even in the explanation of saying like use a grid, they still say the grid is relatively is relative to a point. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. On a map, not a grid. Okay. So it's not necessarily zone combat, but it's supposed to be just like close enough. Like you're either like behind the thing or you're over there, but there's no movement speed, as in like you can only go 10 feet or something like that. One of the worst things in 5e is when someone's 35 away from you and have 30 feet of movement and somehow you're not allowed to hit them.
No, I mean? Sorry, you have to wait. Wait till next turn.
So yeah, I apologize. So it says use a map, not a grid. And yes, I would absolutely use a map. I think that for something this tactical with the size of the squads you have and with how important like specific locations are, like actually getting to like the sync spots and things like that, I think having a visual map would be really important.
Yeah.
There's actually a whole section in the referee section when we get to it that talks about and gives links to resources. We're actually going to get to that in just a little bit. That gives resources on how to get to maps and stuff. So read the principles of play. Is the next part of it. How do you do it? To play, you'll need the manual, 3 to 5 players and a referee, 2 6-sided dice. I love having just 2 6-sided dice. You can try to play with less than 3 or more than 5, but it's designed for it to be at least 4. There's a conversion section or a discussion section later about when it's only 3. A few additional tools, probably good to have. Copy of Planet Fist, obviously. The character sheets, a facility map, tokens, figures, prints of the reference sheets. And if your squad is playing online, you want a copy of the digital character sheet, which has a link to it right there. You know what I did, and I don't think I like it, is I removed the cursor so that you can see the cursor on here. And I think I like that you can see the cursor, so we're going to turn the cursor back on because I like to point at things. So copy the digital character sheet, which links right out to it. Love when people do that. Thank you. A virtual tabletop or VTT, such as Owlbear Rodeo. Owlbear Rodeo, not as good as it used to be now. They converted to a pay model and put some of the stuff behind a paywall, so that's kind of annoying. The best thing about it was how easy it was to just hit start and start playing. And a map and token images for use with your VTT. Again, it talks about play as conversation. So this is one of those things where it's just like, yes, totally get it. This is like the 3rd time we've talked about it. So this is kind of leaning into a little bit of what you said, the kind of the curse of the PBTA, a little bit of overt explanation. It's definitely drilling in, keep it narrative first, keep it role play heavy. But it does it over and over and over again. Like other PBTA systems, it's a conversation. There's a black box at the bottom that says, for example, establishing narration through roles. I like this. I like the examples more than re-explaining it again. It says, in response to a failed roll, the referee might explain that you walked into an ambush that didn't exist until your failure called it into being. On the flip side, your success might not only convince the enemy scientists to fork over their prototype, it might also establish that she hates her boss and she's secretly wanting to help you from the beginning. The world is malleable and the past is the space for play. So it's definitely different than like the core of like the quote unquote like Principia Apocrypha style OSR where the entire world exists already and you're just moving through it. Mixed success systems like this, and I do like this, really allow for and one of the reasons I love running this kind of system is because I feel like a player too, where like I feel like
you're coming up with stuff on the spot, you're getting to improv. Like I agree, it's the best part about 2d6 and partial success, like narrative changes depending on the situation. It's a good example.
Yeah, it is a good example. I really dig that. So how else do you do it? Unlike most other PBTAs, this game has HP and damage, which I really like. I like combat. I'm a combat boy. I'm a fan. Play as combat mechanics and conversation. Characters have HP, and failed rolls in combat typically translate into damage to that HP. Combat is split into combat rounds, and each of which contains ordered combat turns for each player. On each player's turns, they can take a risky action and a safe action. I really like the risky and safe actions, which obviously we've seen. So unlike most war games, these actions are not strictly defined. We're back into a conversation again. While some text in this manual might require a specific action and yield a specific outcome, most often the standard operating procedure, even in combat, is to 1. Describe what you want to accomplish and how you approach it. 2. Have the referee translate these desires into actions, determining whether they are risky or safe, and as such, whether they can be accomplished in one turn. And 3, take those actions, rolling for a risky action if needed. So, again,
easy.
Don't say, I want to roll to to punch that guy in the face. Like, just say, I want to punch that guy in the face, and I will say, okay, you're in the line of fire, roll X, you know? In the end, there should be very few turns that are entirely by the book. Be creative, etc. Rolling dice. So it's 2d6, mixed success. I love it. It's my favorite. 6 a blow, you fail. shit happens. 7 to 9, partial success. You succeed, but there's a compromise or a complication, so shit still happens. 10 or above, you succeed. Double sixes is a critical success. Not only do you succeed, you get extra good stuff for you. My favorite game mechanic, my favorite core.
Good. It is a really, really solid dice mechanic, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Jess said, big design philosophy of mine was as often as possible. If it has a predetermined outcome, it shouldn't take an action. It just happens. I want people to be able to do narratively flexible actions every turn. I love that. It's a great design philosophy. I really enjoy that throughout the book too. When asked to roll, you can always spend a war die, if you have one, to add plus 1d6 to your result. Squad mates may also spend a war die. Basically, everyone can spend as many war die. Everyone can spend war die, but each person can only spend one. I will say, though, I don't think throughout this book, I know you should read Fist before you read this, but do you remember a point where it actually specifically talks about, like, what a war die is? Because this is the first time war die is brought up and it doesn't say it. So, like, there's a little bit of, like, if you haven't read Fist and you've only read this,
I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot who's like, I've read Fist and I know what this is, so I didn't really look into it. I mean, there has to be. Yeah,
I don't remember if there is an explanation anywhere of what the war die are in this. Maybe I missed it. Ask the referee for example failure consequences to get a sense of the shit you're signing up for. I do like that, where it's like, well, if I do this, what kind of stuff would happen? Well, this would happen. Well, then I don't want to do that.
I feel like that's an interesting thing that we see a lot in games that I have always, and maybe it's from playing with people, I always taken for granted that, like, you can ask, like, hey, if I do this, like, have you ever been at the table where you've asked and they've been like, I don't know, it'll just fail. Like, usually, like, at least in my tables, and I think most tables I've sat at, I've been like, hey, if I do this, like, is there yeah, man, if you do that, you might fall off the roof and, alert everybody.
It depends. I think a lot of the oppositional GMing style has disappeared, which is great, but it depends. I also, we've talked before about our love for the Himbo's kind of mixed success in a D20 system that Max Lander instituted. So that's great. Jess said it's an introduction to the concept. I like that. I would say, though, that, like, as the introduction to the concept, I wouldn't mind maybe like a page number so I could be like, wait, what's a war die, and bounce to it. But I mean, if it's just an introduction, explain later. It's not a big deal. Dice in detail. So basically explains, like, the different concepts of dice. So XD6 means a number of D6. A number of D6, best of or worst of D6, it's just basically the highest or the lowest. D66, for those that don't know, it's the first number and the second number. It's not totally 66. Rounding, when modifying the result of a roll, add bonuses, then divide, then round up. So it's round up. And then random tables, you roll. Attributes, you get grit, tactics, etiquette, and precisions. The range is -3 to +3. Grit is basically your acts of mental and physical fortitude, like shooting under fire, climbing a cliff and stuff. Tactics are applications of strategic thinking, like taking a flanking shot, executing a coordinated advance. Etiquette is invocations of social and military protocol, like dealing with your command. And precision is feats of dexterity, like taking carefully aimed shots. So there's a note here on specialization. It says, while it's okay for players to choose rather than roll their traits to focus on certain attributes, both players and referees should try to avoid making these into magical stats that fix everything. Failure's fun. Have fun. You're going to die a shitload.
I did like that note a lot. I read that too. I'm like, that's a good one. Like, reinforcing that, like, this is a game where you fail and you die a bunch. I think there was somewhere in here, I don't know if we hit it already, but there's a point where it's like, yeah, hey, you're so squishy that even on a partial success, you might still die if the referee rolls well enough. I'm like, cool. Like, you want that. Like, I want, like, I got de-risk, gotta go to that respawn point. I feel like for so long, so many games really leaned away from having anything video gamey at all. I get that for certain things, but it's fun to have games that have come out more recently where they're like, oh no, like, we're totally going to embrace this video gamey aspect and just explain it into the fiction and just let you enjoy, like, being like a suicidal, like a himbo gun wielding merc. Sounds like fun. So
yeah. So stop me in like 3 minutes as I go on this rant. But
okay.
Here's the thing about tabletop role-playing games that kind of bugs me a tiny bit. It is that kind of like, how dare you take something from a board game? This is tabletops. How dare you take something from a video game? This is tabletops, right? That's a shit fucking take. The thing
it really is.
The things about like board games and the things especially about video games is in the game design in general, there are people at the top of their field who write books and manuals and dissect game design and how it works. Like, you know, a lot of our conversations with Source of Victory talk about like people that have made whole careers about game design theory and things like that for video games, for level design, for a bunch of stuff. You know, a lot of the dungeon design philosophy that we went over here in like Seance and stuff like that, like the game loops are taken from video game design philosophy, and instead of rejecting that, an embrace of that will make your game better. Because the difference is, where are the professional like 100-page manuals on level design done like academically in TTRPG? There's not, because people reject that stuff. Yeah. Versus every other type of game design where there is an academia, there is a theory, there is real like dissection of the science behind how it all works. And for some reason TTRPGs reject that and be like, no, instinct, intuition, that's how we're gonna fucking do it. Like, embrace that. And I love video games took cues from TTRPGs, so let's take them back. They're fucking good. You know, was I under 3 minutes?
We'll just digitize these TTRPGs, and we'll make automatic dice rollers by button presses, and then we'll like graphically style them.
Yeah, we should call
it game videos.
Maybe we'll call it like 1D&D. I think that's anyway. Note on fist conversion. While the settings and mechanics of Planet Fist are similar to Fist, they're a little bit different. For a kind of a rough 1-to-1 this versus Fist, grit would be forceful in Fist, tactics would be tactical, etiquette would be creative, precision would be reflexive. So creating characters, I think, is this page 22? Is this? Oh no. We're going to talk about, I will say, a third of this book is explaining how the rest of the book works a little bit, and I don't mind it, but it is a little bit fluffy. Creating characters, creating your squad is a collective process. Unlike some systems, you don't make your characters before your squad sits down to the table. You know, you do it all together because you have to make it all together. When you're ready to make characters, the setup and creation on page 23 section will walk you through it. For now, let's take a look at the standard issue components that make up Planet Fist characters, some of which provide mechanical bonuses. So this is what I'm talking about, and I don't know if this is how you're talking about. This is one of the parts where I was like, if there's a whole section that's already about character creation, I think maybe like the first paragraph or two in this section is kind of like an introduction to like how it will work later is plenty. And I think that going over them now with links to those pages later could just be on the pages later.
I a little bit agree with that.
Yeah. I don't mind that there's like an introduction to it, but like it's a 60-page document, and we're on page like 23 before we get to character creation. So I don't necessarily need all of this information right now, when in 10 pages I will get the information again. So maybe if this was like 120 or 100 or 180, 200 plus page book, having something so early, because you know me, I like to know how the game, I like to know how the game works before you get to character creation. And I think somewhere in on here, Jess did say that, like, I really want to give you a good breakdown of how the game works, because it is kind of different. It's just, I'm kind of up in the air on like if I need this much before I get to those sections. But it talks about faction traits, character traits, trinkets, officer assignments, ranks, roles, bonds, and class traits, which we'll go over later. And then additionally, squads have factions, commanding officers, nicknames, and the Panther ABCs. So there's like 12 steps to character creation. Talking about HP, shields, and damage. So players have 2 max shields and 2 max HP. You are a squishy boy. That's it. That's what you get.
That's it. It never goes up except temporarily.
That's it. Yeah. It's great.
Perfect. I'm great with that.
I love it. It's a dangerous world. You're gonna die, but that's the whole point. You're gonna die a bunch.
I totally appreciate this for being like a father game.
It's they say the word meat grinder earlier in like the intro part, and I'm like, it 100% is. Like, I will just tally.
It's almost like a funnel level, or like a funnel game. It is like the whole game.
Yeah. I love. I mean, again, if I were working on a game, if funnel but a game system popped into my head, you know, that's what it would be like. So anyway, Your shields always take damage first, and you only have 2 of them. In combat, you can take a breather to restore your shields when out of enemy line of sight. This requires a safe action. When in enemy line of sight, it's a risky action. I also don't think, I know they brought up safe and risky before, and in the context of the language said risky rolls, but I don't think there was a specific explanation. I don't know if you feel the same way. I'm the kind of person where, like, the first time you introduce a concept, I would like an explanation, or at least a link to where the explanation is, instead of like hearing it and being like, what is that? And then waiting 20 pages.
Yeah, I think with the part that talked about it, I don't know. I think it like laid out.
Maybe I skimmed. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it laid it out. I can't remember exactly how I referred to it, but yeah, like a more defined, like this, like I don't know. I think it was laid out pretty well. I understood it, and I'm an idiot. I might
have just missed it. So anyway, so shields. This kind of reminds me a little bit of like an ITO mechanic. Am I wrong? Like, is it Into the Odd and Cairn and stuff like that, where like
you take a breath, your HP comes back,
protection, which will never not make my brain break. Just use a different letter. Anyway, but yeah, like you have hit protection, and as soon as you're able to take a breather, you get that back, but it's the actual stat reductions that kill you. This is similar to that, is what it sounds like to me, where you take the shield damage as soon as you can take, but this is a safe action. So you could literally be like, okay, well then I run behind the Panther, and if I'm out of line of sight, I can take a safe action. And then as a safe action, my shields can kind of regenerate. I like that even in the context of combat, where like it really makes movement and cover and things like that important in the context of being like, all right, I need to not do damage this round so I can take a breather, get my 2 shields back. My tiny little nano shield generator can like kick back on or something, and I can jump right back into it. So I like that. Out of combat, shields restore automatically. HP, when you run out of HP, you are dead. If you're lucky or unlucky, depending on where you died, you might have a nearby field medic with the capability to revive you. If you're revived, you instantly stand back up with a full 2 HP and 0 shields. And hope to whichever
immediately get gunned down. Yeah. Stand back up and then
yeah. I love the next line. It says, and hope to whichever gods are still alive that whatever killed you is not. It's one of my favorite lines in the entire book. I love that. As a general rule, Planet Fist characters are very fragile. Even rolling a partial success and taking half damage can kill you if the referee rolls well enough. But luckily in Sixora, death is not the end. Death and derezzing. So that's the standard loop. You die, you derez, you re-res, you come back. When you die, you can choose to wait around to be revived, or you can choose the derez. There's other times where you can do instant versus emergency derezes. That's the next section. If you begin a combat turn already dead, you instant derez. To immediately reassemble at a valid reassembly point and get back into the fight. Lucky you. You may also voluntarily initiate an emergency derez at any time. A wireframe mesh flashes across you as your nanos identify an optimal dissolution pattern. I love that.
Yeah, very funny.
At the end of the combat round, for 10s out of combat, you derez. Dead NPCs always derez at the end of the combat round or after 10s out of combat. Just like PCs, NPCs may also choose to initiate emergency derezes. It says, note on damage and cover. This is a good section because it's a 2d6 system where enemies don't get turns. There are some 2d6 systems out there that really take the concept of 2d6 and turn it more into like an OSR, like I roll, you roll, and I'm just rolling to defend, and enemies still get a turn kind of thing. This does not, and I love. Yeah. This is my.
I'm fine with. I think I prefer that.
Versus this.
No, I think I prefer this, where the enemy does not have its own turn unless it's created by player action.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this says, is that like the consequences, like when an enemy does damage to you, it's because of your failed rolls. And I love that consequence as a game mechanic. Again, if I was making a game, as a player, so it talked about cover. So it says, as a player, if you intend to take cover while advancing and attacking, you should tell that to your referee because it might not necessarily reduce damage on a fail, as a failed roll indicates that you didn't successfully execute your plan, but communicating your narrative intent to use cover might affect what consequences your referee introduces. And I love the example. It's a really good one. With a partial success on a roll where you specify that you were trying to advance through a rocky outcropping, firing bursts from behind rocks, the referee might rule that you both deal and receive half damage because you had... there are a number of typos throughout. I think this was the first one I really found. It says you both had to stay behind cover. While a partial success on a roll to advance Fearlessly down the open road, firing as you go, might inspire the referee to rule that you deal and receive full damage due to trading constant fire in a dangerous advance. So that's a reason to really explain what you want to do narratively, because it can affect how the dice mechanics and damage and everything works.
Good examples in this book, by the way.
Great example.
Sometimes, honestly, I read like the first couple examples when we go through a game. I'm like, I'm not reading another one of these examples.
Yep.
And this one I was like, oh, these are good examples.
Yep. Absolutely. So, class trait overview. So this is another part where it's like the class trait overview is as long as actually getting to the class traits when we get to them. I wouldn't mind. This doesn't really feel like an overview. It feels like 3/4 of the explanation. It's really explaining the mechanic, but then you also have the mechanic later. I wouldn't mind really, again, condensing this entire section down to literally just like a brief overview, and then having a much more of this in the section that actually pertains to this, because I don't want to feel like I have to flip between both. Yeah. So we'll get to the example in a second, and then I'll kind of explain that a little bit. So in Planet Fist, your character embodies one of 5 class traits. Your class trait provides your character with a class weapon, class equipment, and a unique skill, the tactical bread and butter around which you'll strategize in the field. But soldiers like you rarely remain in the same body for long. And if you're being rebuilt anyway, why not rebuild you with the right tools for the job? Anytime you reassemble or resupply, you can choose a new class trait. Your class weapon, class equipment, and skill. Hell, the composition of your body itself changes to match. I love that so much. Like, in a future world where everyone is basically just nano clones, it reminds me a little bit of like a lot of the future stuff out there, like a little bit of Matrix, but more like Demolition Man, where you can literally like upload skills into people, you know, after you've unfrozen them. So if you're a bunch of nanobits that are just being recombined, why not just recombine it with different equipment and a different little bit of knowledge and stuff like that? I absolutely love that. Again, there is a video game aspect to I really, really like. You know, they're like in Apex, they put in like a new mode that's like a capture the flag kind of mode. And every time you re-res, you can pick a different weapon loadout. And it's like, okay, like if I'm dying this much, it'll be nice to switch it up every now and then. So being able to choose to switch it up, love it. Absolutely love it. In case you're greenhorn, here's a quick look at each kit. Consult the class trait section on section 39, again hyperlinked, for a full description of each trait. Note that these are the standard assembly templates. Command permits more experienced soldiers to customize their integrated gear. See advancements. How do you feel about the ability to change literally basically your whole character when you die?
I think it's fine. I think it's respawn rules, you know?
Yeah,
like
I love it.
I think it's good. Like, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing I was just talking about. It's like the video gamey part of this is good, you know? Like, I think it's a strength of it, and I think other games should embrace. I mean, we've seen more games recently embrace it, and I think it's good. Like I just said, I like it. I'm like, yeah, you die. Like, you know what, man? I'm gonna drop him with my my third loadout. You know, loadout slot 3. I
love it so much. I love exactly that. Like, if you're gonna die this much, like by the time you die the third time, kind of trying to do the same thing, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. Like, I'm gonna have a different gun. I'm gonna pick a different trait. I like that. So anyway, so we get to basically this whole page is a brief on the class traits. So for example, there's assault, there's engineer, there's field medic, there's force recon, and there's jet trooper. So assault, heavy weapons and heavier equipment. Anything the machine gun can't mow down, their rocket launcher can probably blow up. They come equipped with a toggleable nanomesh shield, allowing them to sacrifice speed for survivability. There are a few sights more frightening than a line of assaults marching slowly towards your firing line, LMGs raised, and shields aglow. So this is what I'm talking about, and I don't know. I know we talked a little bit before about how like there's just a lot of fluff text. There's a lot here that I genuinely feel like this, it feels a little bit less like an introduction, like I just said, and more of like, it's a lot, when I feel like this could literally be broken down to maybe like 1 or 2 lines each, and then a lot of this flavor can just be in the section that actually talked about it a little bit more. Yeah,
it's like, this is when it started to bother me. Before this, like all of the description, especially for everything, it doesn't really bother me, but for some reason, it's specifically with the building the character, like traits and classes, I'm just like, there's just a lot of like Yeah, fluffing these. I mean, it's good. It's good stuff. But it could be loaded in a little bit differently, and some points could be slimmed down. In my opinion.
Yeah. And like I said, like if we're on page, character creation starts on I think page 23. We're on page 13, and it's not, like I said, it's not a big book, so like it feels very heavy for kind of an introduction. As opposed,
pour me some water too.
Yeah, I would love to. Here you go, buddy. It just feels a little bit heavy. Like I just feel like a lot of this could be slimmed down into more of the basics, and more flavor can be put in character creation. Because you're just reading through a lot to get to that point, I feel.
Yeah.
So assaults are heavy weapons and heavier equipment. Engineers are your engineers. They unique nanosecond engineers. Yeah, you repair stuff. Field medics, guess what? They repair stuff. Force recon, stealth reconnaissance, an incredibly long gun. Force recon employs optical cloaking to sneak behind the enemy lines. So those are your scouts and snipers. And then jet trooper, I love the jet trooper. If you were meant to fly, you'd have been if you were meant to fly, you'd have been assembled as a jet trooper.
Have you ever played EDF, Earth Defense Force?
I know.
Oh, dude. Oh, it's a really great like B list, C list video game. But yeah, I always play the jet trooper, and it reminded me of that.
No, there's a bunch of, I was just not a really big video game person, because I'm the kind of person who will pick one and play for 1,000 hours and not play a bunch. And I think you're the kind of person who plays like 1,000 games. Oh,
I play so many. Yeah. I have games in my Steam, but I'm like 100 and something games, and some of them I play for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I have like 100 games in my Steam list, and I've played like 5 for like 1,000 each. So I did not play a bunch. Facilities. The world of Sixora is split into facilities. They're important locations full of resources and equipment that you're trying to get to. Sync points. Stabilizing these nano nets requires the construction of specialized sync points. So I really like this. This is interesting. Basically, everything is made of nanobits. So if you make a whole facility out of nanobits, bad stuff can happen in the context of this world, which I dig. So basically, when there's too many nanobits in one spot, I say nanobits, it's not what it really says, I'm just saying those words. There becomes a point in that kind of like net of nanos that becomes a weak spot. So what gets put at those parts is sync points. Generally there's like 1 or 2, but also when constructing a facility, you're not sure of where those sync points are. So sometimes they're in good defensible positions, sometimes they're just not. It's just kind of where the nanos felt like they weren't liking each other. So I dig that. So the architecture of sync points disrupts the process of nano reassembly. You cannot reassemble within 100 meters of sync point. I like that. Again, video gamey in the sense of like in like capture the flag kind of modes like Destiny and stuff like that. You don't reassemble right where you were fighting. You have to go back to your spawn point, which is usually on the edges of the map. Smart, great in-world way to do that. Really, really clever. I really dig it. Capturing a facility, basically it's capture the flag, like I was saying before. To capture a facility, a faction soldiers must hold the majority of the facility's sync points long enough for their own nano parts to start to reconfigure the whole facility. And so you need to stay there long enough for the blue to turn red. You know, you need the bar to reach all the way to the end, and you just can kick over to your system. When it's captured and controlled, it changes. And a sync clock happens. A sync clock is like a 3-tick clock where you have to spend combat rounds holding it entirely, and then it'll click over to yours.
It's like King of the Hill in Halo. Yeah.
It's any type of
point
what
capture.
do they call it in like Destiny and Apex put it in. Control. That's what I was trying to think of. It's control mode. Yeah. You have to hold A spawn, B spawn, or C spawn.
Listen, if we just rub our 2 brain cells together fast enough, we'll come up with words. So.
We get there eventually. To assimilate a sync point, known as holding the point, faction soldiers simply need to outnumber the enemies within 10 meters of the antenna. Love that. Sync clocks. If attacking faction holds more of a facility's sync points than defending faction, you start a clock. It's a 3-tick clock at the end of every combat round. You mark a sync point, And there you go. At the end of each round, you do that. Once you get 3, you've converted it. Note on architecture, the factions are proud of the architecture, and when a facility is captured, decorative aspects of the facility also convert instantly. Motivational posters of the corporate new committee might warp and deform into disgusting grotesques of the Tyrant Council. So the whole thing, like, respawned with their own flavor and everything. Section on time. Combat rounds are roughly 10 seconds, but don't really matter. I love this part where it says, within 10 seconds, all players' turns happen near simultaneously. That said, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, etc. Like, I love that where it's just like, who really cares? The referee is encouraged to stretch or compress that as much as they want. And really, it only matters in the context of like a mechanic that requires like a set number of things, which then is broken down into 10 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever.
Have you seen Doctor Who? Have you watched Doctor Who?
Yeah, I watched a shitload of Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Why?
Because it's like, I don't know, because I always see the wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, and I'm like, oh yeah, Doctor Who. He says that.
Oh, it does feel it does feel. Yeah. No, I missed that. Yeah. I watched that less than I thought. You were strongly encouraged. I watched it through. I didn't start. Who was the guy after David Tennant?
Matt Smith.
I didn't watch any Matt Smith.
Oh, the wibbly wobbly timey wimey is David Tennant.
It is explicitly a Doctor Who reference, but wanted to play it coy. That's what Jess said. Mm-hmm. Well, then there you go. You caught it. I love all the references in this. I love the references in this. I got that one. Because it's very clearly like, yeah, I ripped that off, and it'll say sometimes in here like, yes, I totally ripped that off, and it's like, okay. Maps and distance. You are strongly encouraged to use maps while playing Planet Fist. That is in bold. You are strongly encouraged to use maps. It's possible to do theater of the mind, but with the emphasis on combat and mechanical bits and tactical areas, it's encouraged to use maps. Distance, however, is mostly approximate. Weapons don't have specified ranges. Do whatever makes sense. For skills mechanics that specify an exact distance in meters, such distances only matter when being compared to other precisely specified distances. So being within like 10 meters of the sync point, who really cares if you're fucking close enough? If you're just like, am I close enough? The referee can be like, yep. And you're like, cool, I'm good. These distances don't have to be taken literally on the map. It's more important that combat flows quickly and easily. As a general breakable rule, PCs can move about 100 meters in 10 seconds on foot, which means about a round. That's 300 feet.
Oh my God.
That is a decent distance. But players do not have to set movement distance for a reason, etc. So for I'm not gonna read that. It's a great example. I'm not gonna read it. Combat turns. I love this. There is a flow chart. I love me some flow charts.
We love a flow chart on here. We're a flow chart based vlog.
Flow charts and hyperlinks, baby. Like, just do that and we'll love your game. Probably. So follow this procedure during your combat.
Probably.
1, delay is an option. You can delay your turn if you want. 2, derez and reassemble. If dead, you may initiate an instant derez and reassembly at a valid reassembly point. Then take the rest of your turn. You must already be dead to derez. There's emergency derezing. 3, actions. You may take a risky action and a safe action. Alternate actions. If in place of your risky action, you can set up a readied action or take a second safe action. Though in a game as flexible as this one, there's a riskier, more fun, and more impactful way to do things, to do just about anything. There's combining actions. Moving while out of enemy's line of sight is usually safe, while moving in line of sight is usually risky. For movement only, not other kinds of actions, you may combine your safe action and risky action to add movement to your risky action. This allows you to move through enemy line of sight without requiring an extra roll. The success or failure of your attempt to move is included in your risky action. Extra actions. Once per round on the turn, a player may spend a war die to take an extra risky action. Action. Safe action. Anything unlikely to fail or cause you harm, such as moving a reasonable distance outside of enemy line of sight, placing a deployable or picking up an item in a safe area, initiating emergency derez, or deploying a panther. Anything the referee determines reasonably safe and unlikely to fail. So risky actions are any that have a meaningful chance of failure or causing you harm. Anything requiring a dice roll is a risky action, and all risky actions require dice rolls. Readied action. Instead of taking a risky action, declare a trigger and a response. If the trigger occurs before your next turn, you interrupt it and immediately roll the risky action you had planned, potentially changing the outcome of whatever triggered it. An instant. Anything described as instant requires no action to perform. So like I said, there's an area earlier where there's an introduction to the concept of war die and safe and risky actions, but I wouldn't mind a link specifically directly to this page that says more on that here.
This is what I was thinking about for safe action. This spot right here.
Yeah, but
like,
like I said, I'm of the mind where the first time you introduce a concept, there should at least be either the place to find it or a brief explanation of it, as opposed to just like saying like a bolded keyword and not really giving the context. Because I'll just flip until I find it. You know, there like the flow chart here. I dig it. It says delay your turn. Yes, no. On no, are you dead? Yes, no. On no, take your action, safe or risky, and then next player's turn, and then delay your turn. Yes, and then reassemble if you're dead or not, and then instant derez and it goes back in. Great flow. This is just makes my brain work well. So Jess had a couple of things here. The 10-second barrier is the physical and psychological barrier of completing the 100-meter sprint in under 10 seconds. The achievement is traditionally regarded as a hallmark of war-class male sprinter. Boom. There we go. So your war-class nanoclones. That's great. Here's the thing that's great about Jess, and reading through this game, I'm really glad Jess is here, is there's not anything in here that she didn't like clearly like read about, like reference, do something. There is nothing. There's nothing that isn't really, really well thought out through the entire thing, which I really like. And there's a consistency throughout because of that. You're basically all top of the line human bodies. And they added explain safe and risky better the first time, or at least page 16. So combat rounds at the beginning of each combat. Choose a turn order for your squad. Each combat round begins with players taking their turns. That's the thing about PBTA when only your actions cost things. Is turn order doesn't really matter that much to an extent. Like, it kind of does, but like nothing. Like the enemies don't get around. But it says choose your turn order and go. Movement, unengaged NPCs move at the referee's discretion. Emergency derez, all emergency derezers resolve. Sync clocks tick. These are numbered. 1 movement, 2 derez, 3 sync clock, 4 glitching. I do like glitching, and this is exactly what I mean. Referee rolls for glitching, and then there's just like a page reference. Love that. Even this is what I'm saying. Even just a parentheses earlier about like safe action parentheses page 16. You know, I like that. Reassembly, dead NPCs derez, and any applicable NPCs reassemble. So combat end of round structure, there's another flowchart here that explains movement, emergency derez, sync points, glitching, reassembly, and the order in which all of them happen. Love this. This is so great. And as a printout right next to you, this makes it so easy to like not only know what's going on, but as someone else does something, know what's coming next. More games need to have flowcharts. It helps the brain. There's a reason that corporations make, you know, the people that are so burnt out on their bullshit use flowcharts because it makes it easy for your brain to work.
Synergy.
Loot. With advanced nanotechnology comes advanced digital rights management. Each faction employs security tech to ensure their equipment can't be used or even recovered by. So we got DRM on your people. I love that. Unless otherwise specified, all items have the following security features by default. There's ident locking, which is mechanical and technological functions functions only work for the item's owner. And remote derezing, this item's nanos are networked to their owners, syncing their derez cycle. In other words, when the owner derezes, the item does as well. Except for glitching, and I love that. Admiral note. Why the slightly complicated item rules? The simple version is this: I want you to be up against cool and interesting enemies at approximately the same power level as yourself, and I don't want you packing an arsenal that destroys the entire game balance the moment you have a few kills on your belt. These rules allow the referee to fine-tune what items make it over to you, keeping the drops interesting and the game balanced. Also deployables, but that's another balance layer. So items, item tags, and derezing. So there's deployables, unlinked, and glitching. Deployables, these items are carried as small flat containers of nanos and self-assemble, aka deploy, after being placed and activated by their owner. So you literally just have like a little brick of nanos and go, gun, drop it, and it becomes a gun. I love that.
Very capsule core, you know?
Yeah. Deploying the item disables automatic remote derezing of the item until retrieved or the owner chooses to initiate a derez. Etc. So unlinked items with the tag unlinked have not been deemed important enough by faction command to invest in ident locking. While carrying unlinked items is discouraged by command, many do. Six-Sword soldiers have to make a life out on the battlefield somehow. When enemies carrying unlinked items derez, such items remain behind. When you take possession of an unlinked item, your nanos passively link the item, and you remove this tag. So if you picked up an enemy's unlinked item, it is now linked to you. But I love glitching. So the level of nano network activity can occasionally cause the link which underpins the remote DRes system to glitch. Such glitches are visible by a quickly and erratically flashing mesh pattern over the surface of an item. If you see such an item, retrieve it quickly. Glitching items are in limbo, cut off from their faction's nanonet. Long story short, you might kill someone, they'll drop a gun, and it literally is blinking on the field. And it has it has a timer. So if you're able to snag it before it dereses, it stops becoming unstable and you're able to use it. Like, it's so video gamey, but also in the context of a world where everything is made of nanobots, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
That, like, the system is not always going to be well. What I want to see, though, sometimes is a glitching soldier where you shoot it and the person's just like, as they like blink in and out with like a bullet through them. So resupplying, some items use a limited number of uses. The squad beacon and all limited use items granted by your class trait are lagging trait. There we go. That's what it is. Are automatically resupplied when you reassemble with resupply points. Healing and reviving. Healing and reviving out of combat, where you're safe without combat, shields return, and field medics can heal or revive you. Healing and reviving in combat during combat if the enemy has line of sight to you. Restoring your own shields to full, or healing or reviving an ally as a field medic is considered a risky action. It takes skill to properly hide. If the enemy does not have line of sight on you, all forms of healing only take a safe action and do not require a dice roll. So if you are able to get out of line of sight and take a safe action, you can pop your shields will regenerate, and a field medic can heal you even without rolling as a safe action because you are safe. Whole section on vehicles. The Panther class armored personnel carrier, the Panther APC, is your base vehicle, and that we'll talk about that in setup and creation. Vehicles are Gophers, which is a terrain vehicle, Rattlesnake, which is light transport, the Panther APC, Jaguar, which is the light tank, and Osprey, which is aerial troops transport, and the Rhino, which is the main battle tank. So for example, your Panther APC has 12 HP, 6 armor, bulky 1, which we'll get to, 2 medium mount gunner weapons, and 12 seats. And then there's medium mount vehicles, the Earthquake high explosive cannon, medium mount weapons. Earthquake is the high explosive cannon. The Hurricane is the anti-infantry rotary turret, and the Blizzard is the armor piercing rotary turret. And then the heavy mount weapons are the Jaguar high explosive heavy cannon. The Crater is the high explosive anti-tank hybrid cannon, and the Comet is the APDS anti-tank cannon. So you could literally have a whole thing where you just go, fuck it, we're doing tank combat this whole day, facility, everything.
Yeah,
tank
absolutely.
combat, baby. Let's fucking do it. Reassembly points. What page are we on? We're almost to character creation. We're almost through like the how to play section here. So note on sync shields: to ensure a continuous supply of, I love that cannon fodder is marked out, soldiers, each faction invested into expensive sync shields to protect all the entrances and exits of reassembly tank buildings. The controlling faction's nanos are synced to the shield, allowing that faction soldiers to pass through. To anyone else, the bubble is impenetrable. The bubble also repels high velocity and high energy projectiles and any volatile explosive compounds, preventing any faction from flying through. Long story short, some entrances are synced to their people, and if you try to go through it, you ain't getting through it. I love this part here. We'll get to that in a second. Reassembly points. To ensure soldiers don't waste any time being dead, Six Orders factions provide their soldiers with this is the anti-spawn camping mechanic, which I love. Reassembly tanks. Soldiers of a given faction can always reassemble at the reassemble tanks of any facility controlled by their faction. Squad beacons. Every member of the squad gets a squad beacon. This is a special deployable. If any squad member places a second beacon, the first dereses automatically. Squad beacons have 2 HP. They must be placed outdoors. If the beacon is destroyed, you can retrieve another from reassembly or resupply. While deresing, members of the squad may reass at an active squad beacon. Admiral's note: the typo reass occurred while I was renaming respawning to reassembly, and it's the best typo of all time, so I'm keeping it in the rule book. Respect.
That was a good one.
Yep, I'm a reass all over the place in here. The squad is granted a Panther. Reass to Mars. Keeping in mind that reassembly is never possible within 100 meters of the sync point, so you can drive it up to it, but if you're within 100 meters with your Panzer, you can't do that there. we got like what, 2 pages left, and then we'll hit character creation. Yep. Okay. So assets and authorizations. I do love this. Command to stingy with resources. Do you think we're made of nano soldier? Acquiring friendly aid or large equipment requires clearance from top brass. So pre-auths, the referee may offer pre-authorized assets at the beginning of a mission or as a reward for completing a mission objective. I think there's a part later where it says like rewarding pre-auth. Let them do some stuff. I really dig that. Emergency requisition. Once per combat, the squad may attempt an emergency rec. A member of the squad must contact command directly or through the CO to request specific CLRO asset requiring an etiquette. On a 10+, you receive an authorization from the asset immediately. On a 7 to 9, combat debates it first. You receive authorization at the beginning of the next round. On a 6-, combat refuses and chews out the squad CO for wasting their time. I love that. So there's clearance levels to that. There's a section below talking about clearance levels. So clearance level 0, squad of friendly blueberries. I love blueberries. That's my favorite term in anything that has a map. Requires nearby friendly reassembly point. Clearance level 1, the requester's choice of standard threat. Friendly squad inserted via orbital catapult. And clearance level 2, requester's choice of major threat. Friendly squad inserted via orbital catapult. Orbital and vehicle assets. Orbital beam. Pick a location in line of sight. After the last player's turn, the orbital beam strikes a location and spreads outward in 100-meter AoE. The nano repulsion beam is specifically tuned to the nano architecture of people and vehicles in order to leave precious facility infrastructure in place for capture. So, beam comes down from the sky, blast shit. Orbital catapult may be used to insert a squad or vehicle at a chosen location. Vehicle assets, unless a vehicle asset includes insertion by orbital catapult, vehicles are granted by assets must be assembled at the vehicle terminal of the friendly facilities vehicle pad. Tag references. So this is a list of the tags besides glitching, unlink, things like that. So there's AoE-X, which is area of effect damage. There's APX, which ignores X armor when damaging a target. Bulky X, when driving bulky vehicles through small spaces or cluttered terrain, they move a reduced distance, and rolls related to driving the vehicle or operating its guns take a -X penalty. Deployable, we talked about already. Damage reduction X means you reduce by X. Imprecise, the weapon is optimized for hitting large targets, so you take a -2 penalty on attribute rolls to accurately hit small targets. Overkill is basically like cleave. If you kill something and you have more damage left, you can apply it to a close target. Scoped, it's effective at long range, so -2 penalty on attack rolls to close targets. Oh, no, imprecise was -2 penalty on any small target. Yeah. Sticky. Yeah. Item may be affixed to a target. Roll a relevant attribute as a risky action to successfully affix it. Suppressing, choose a location. The size of the weapon's AoE in line of sight until your next turn. All who enter that location take the weapon's full damage. Toggle, the item or skill can be toggled, aka activated or deactivated. Woo! That's how to play.
So let's talk about making a character. So first and foremost, this is a very collaborative character creation process. And you should resist the urge to roll up a full character before you're sitting at the table with your buddies, because you're going to do stuff together. They have a print link to an online character and squad sheet on Google Sheets, which, shout out, that's the most useful thing ever. If this is your squad's first time playing Plant Fist, have a different player read each of the principles of play aloud before beginning play. I might do that. I don't know if my table would do that, but I might do that. So there is a list of character creation steps, which we always love. It is a 12-item list. First is set lines and veils. 2 is you select your faction and your faction trait. 3, you select the character traits. 4, your trinket. 5, create a CO. 6, assign officer. 7, assign rank. 8, select your role. 9, select your bonds. 10, outfit your Panther APC. And 11, create a squad nickname. And 12, select an initial class trait.
It's a lot of steps of character creation, but it's also squad creation and vehicle creation.
Yes, it is squad. There are many steps, but there is a lot going on here. So, Admiral's note. Character creation often presents you with the opportunity to roll or choose. How you handle this is up to you, but I encourage you bring in a random element, especially in the early stages of character creation. Figure out how to make meaning, how to make a soldier out of ridiculous results, and is exactly the sort of over-the-top nonsense this game is built to encourage. Personally, I prefer to roll my faction trait and character traits randomly and handpick my role and bonds. And a choice of role and bonds provides a great opportunity to ask exactly what type of guy would have the set of traits that I happen to roll. I think it's a good divider. I'm a fan of all things random all the time. So let me tell you, I would do it randomly all the way through. And I think we'll go ahead and make a character, right? You're going to make one too?
Yeah. So we can do the squad stuff.
All right. Step one, set lines and veils. We've talked about lines and veils before, and you should read this part.
Good.
2,
use them.
Select faction and faction trait. Every squad belongs to the military of one of 6R's 3 factions. Review the faction traits section and collectively decide which faction your squad would like to roleplay as being permanently employed by. Then each player rolls or chooses a faction trait. So you want to go straight to factions? Click
and
back here.
The best way to do it, click on 26 and you're right there.
26.
So new committee, 𝗣𝗧 Council of Vellian Ascendancy. I know where mine head is at. I don't know where your head is at. What faction do you want?
I'm going to do Valiant Ascendancy.
Well, we're the same squad, so we have to do it together.
Yeah, I'm asking, what do you want?
I will say, new committee, 𝗣𝗧 Council of Vellian Ascendancy, still, it reminds me so much of New Monarchy, Dead Orbit, and Future War Cult. I mean, it feels exactly like Destiny's 3 factions. I mean, I would go 𝗣𝗧 Council, but if you know the Vellian Ascendancy, that's time by me.
No, we'll do 𝗣𝗧 Council. That's cool because you can just get stuff in the middle of combat. Like you can just call in aerial strikes and shit for them.
Oh, yeah. So good. Okay, so we're going to be 𝗣𝗧. So we are the coup-loving war boys. Purple and gold. Oh man, I would flip 𝗣𝗧 Council to the black and green and have Vellian Ascendancy be purple and gold, but then it really would be like Future War Cult.
It's not in the rules, so
𝗣𝗧 Council. Okay, we are the 𝗣𝗧 Council. So what do we do? We roll for a faction trait now?
And now we roll for a faction trait, even though Hunter for some reason clicked away. We're on 26. Yeah, faction. So we're gonna scroll down to the 𝗣𝗧 Council, which is on 28.
𝗣𝗧 Council.
Yeah.
Do you want me to roll? Or do you want to roll for the faction trait?
Ooh, you go ahead and roll for the faction trait. What faction trait?
1d6. I got a 2. What's 2?
Mercilessness. Wait, am I on the right page? I am on the right page. Roll a 2.
Yeah, I was on the wrong page. Yeah.
Yeah. Mercilessness. Mercy is for the dead. And no one dies around here, soldier. When you kill an enemy, you may mark them for punishment. If you kill the marked enemy a second time, gain is it Pruth? Cool. For any compliance asset, you may only gain 1. Ryan, am I saying that right?
Oh, is this one of the other typos? Yes. You may only gain 1 wait. If you kill the marked enemy a second time, gain a pre-auth for any complete asset. You may only gain 1 pre-auth per session.
Pre-auth per session. Okay, that was asking.
Yeah.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah.
If this enemy leaves the facility before you complete this objective, the referee must alert you and allow you to choose a new enemy on your next kill.
I love that. Basically, if you kill something, when you kill it again, you start like a kill streak, and you get you get a pre-auth to the thing. And like you said, I love the 𝗣𝗧 Council ones because all of them are basically like get a pre-auth.
Yeah.
So you get the compliance. So all the pre-auths give you a compliance assets, and then there's a list of the compliance assets.
Yeah, the compliance assets are cool. It is an aerial surveillance drone, which reveals all outdoor enemies until end of combat. It also sees through cloaks and smoke. You can get an artillery strike or the rod from God. That thick old rod from God which is like a laser that just pierces through buildings, and yeah, very cool.
Shit. I gotta do it.
Oh, hey, rolled a 20 for thick rod, you know?
Oh, did I get a 20? Yeah.
Cool. So that was we select our faction and our faction trait. We did it.
Yeah, I really dig the tyrant ones though, and how that each one is very different. Like the tyrant ones, like destruction, merciless, overkill, relentless, retribution, vengeance, and you basically just like. So it feels like the tyrant council ones, because they're such war boys. Basically, like every time you get the pre-auth, you're just bringing in all these assets. So like if you're battling the tyrant council, whether you're before or against them, it's gonna be full of like drones and artillery strikes, and the rod from God's gonna be coming down like all the time, because there's just like a constant like bombardment of these other ones, and it's so much different than the faction traits for like new committee and some of the other ones, which are much more about like
trait names. Like I could hear them in Halo, you know, like overkill, merciless, retribution, vengeance, you know. Yeah, okay, so pick the faction trait. Step 3 is we are now going to go to page you're going to go to character traits, page 30, to help establish your character's personality and capabilities by granting you attributes, war dice, and a unique skill. Roll or pick. So we're going to page 30. Roll or pick.
So, is this the one that's like, oh, E and O? So you do D66, but the first die, it only matters if it's even or odd. And I'm just gonna roll.
Yeah. So choose a roll, 2 character traits. You cannot pick the same one twice. Yeah, roll D66. The first die only matters even or odd. Yeah.
Jess said each of the faction traits are uniquely themed. New committee are always gear, items, and equipment, which makes sense because they have it, because they're rich as fuck in their corporations. The Velian ascendancy is always cybernetics that have a big plus and a small negative, and the Tyrant Council is always a side quest that gives you a compliance asset. Great. I love the
very cool
variation across all 3, giving you totally different. What did you get for yours?
So for character traits, I got Augmented Synthesis Project. Congratulations, soldier. You've been selected for an exclusive program. Command has injected you with experimental high-capacity nanos that will allow you to make effective use of a greater variety of nano-assembled devices. When you reassemble, choose a primary and secondary class trait. You may gain both the skill and the items from your primary class trait. You gain only the class items from your secondary class trait. You do not gain the skill. Any session where you advance, add 1 additional advancement. Any session where you advance, add 1 additional advancement. Remember, your augmentation was an expensive investment. Command has high expectations for you, and we'll be watching your performance closely. You get +1 precision and then +1 war die per sesh.
That's dope. The war dice are legit. Yeah. I rolled 1 and 2, which gives me odd 2, which is that we mentioned this earlier, lagging. So you occasionally flicker in and out of existence, appearing as if you're repeatedly teleporting a few centimeters each second rather than moving. Most of your squad has gotten used to it, but others find it very strange or annoying. You may activate this effect instantly once per combat, lasting up to 2 combat rounds or 20 seconds. While doing so, you cannot be dealt damage, nor can you successfully deal damage, and you take a -2 penalty on precision rolls. So minus precision, +3 on rolls to avoid being hit. That cracks me up, because when your ping is like 250 and you think you're shooting someone and you're just like all over the board, yeah, I love that. That's such a good one.
Cool.
All right.
What page is that? We get character traits. Now we get to select our trinket on page 33.
Oh, okay.
Where are we? Okay, cool. Yeah. It's a D66. Again, although this one's actually D66, doesn't matter. What'd you get?
I rolled a 55, so I get a personal diary.
Nice.
And it 100% is pink with a unicorn sticker.
I have loaded dice.
Oh, look at you.
I know. Look at me.
I love that they're broken up into 6 different styles of trinkets too. It's not just like pure 66. It's like 6 different sets of 6 different styles of trinkets, which I really dig.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I'm just typing the page instead of scrolling back up, but whatever. I'm a creature of habit is why. So we select our trinket. Now we're going to create a CO. The referee establishes a commanding officer. The NPC to whom your squad reports your CO is not a member of the top brass who comprises your faction's command. Listen, words are good. You're talking to a middle manager. Your CO is some mid-level guy who tells you what to do, but isn't up high. Also, their perception of you and how much they like or dislike you can affect how bad things go for you, because obviously you're following their orders.
Yeah. So it's 1d6 on each table. Do you want to do the first table and not the second table?
Yeah, absolutely. I got nosy.
And I got optimist.
Ah,
that sounds very fucking obnoxious.
A nosy optimist.
Yeah,
love it.
I guess that's better than a spiteful hard ass.
I rolled earlier, and I think I got apathetic philosopher.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. Next step is assigning officers, consult the officers' assignments section to distribute the appropriate number of officer assignments throughout your squad. These assignments will provide additional depth to your squad's relationships and enable you to re-roll a particular category of role once per session. So that is on page 34. Mm-hmm. And there's like a chain of command, a little box that shows you if you have a squad of a certain size, though there are more positions to be filled. Squad of 3 has just squad leader and 2 enlisted. Squad of 4 has a tactical officer added onto that, and Squad of 5 has all those things and a logistics officer added onto that. And they all have a different role that they play, and a little different, reroll that they get. Squad leader, you're in charge of these assholes for better or worse. It might be good or bad. Friendly soldiers of lesser rank follow your orders unless they choke. Once per session, you can re-roll an etiquette roll. Tactical officer, once per session, you can re-roll a tactics roll. Logistics is a little bit different, right? It's your job is to make sure that your squad shows up to the Panther, and a beacon is deployed. Once per session, you may re-roll an attribute roll made to protect any kind of reassembly point. So basically, you can re-roll anything that helps you protect that point. Enlisted, you got nothing. You re-roll grit. You know, you're just a grunt. Yeah. Your job's just to kill. So
I dig the field promotion and the whole chain of command bit, and the whole lean into that.
Yeah. So the field promotion section. I'll just read this page. You sort the squad by their tactical bonus. So highest tactical goes up. That creates the chain of command. You break ties in a random order. If they wish, you may not yet claim an enlisted slot. If there are still officer assignments available after the last player's turn, the squad enters field promotion. Field promotion continue in the same order as above, skipping anyone who is already an officer. Each time it comes to you, call evens or odds, then roll a d6. If you're right, choose any unclaimed slot on the table. If you're wrong, sorry, soldier. Command requires your service. Take the highest available officer assignment. Very cool. Very cool, active way to promote from within.
Yeah, it's interesting too, but like being able to be like, nah, fuck that, I don't want to do it, and having a roll to not get it, because it's like, I want the grit, I want the grit. So it's like, no, I don't want to be an officer, I don't want to be a target, I don't want to be any of that. Like,
sorry, bud.
Yeah, I dig the flavor of it in play. Like, I'm curious if people would really just be like, they just like, whatever, sure. But like, I also like people playing into just being like, ah, fuck no, like I ain't taking that responsibility. You know, I dig the option to kind of dig into it or not.
Yeah, this is a long process for character creation because this is halfway through it. What we just did. The next is going to be assigning ranks. Choose ranks for each character using the procedure or just the tables from page 35, or inventing your own entirely. Yeah. Ranks to ensure subordinates don't outrank superiors. And that every officer has a rank vaguely reasonable for their assignment. This procedure uses a running dice pool and may change the result of the die after it's used. So be sure to keep your dice around. 1, assign CO rank. Begin the pool by rolling a d6. Your CO gains the rank from the officer's ranks table equal to the current total of the pool. In other words, the value of the die just rolled.
Yeah. Do you want me, so I'll roll. Do you want me to roll while you're reading it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I rolled a 2. So our CO is an admiral.
An admiral. Wow. Look how high up we are. A CO is an admiral. Okay. 2. Assign squad leader rank. If the die already in the pool is less than 4, change it to a 4. Okay. Then the squad leader may roll or choose. We'll say roll the result of a d6 and add your pool to it. Your squad leader gains that rank from the officer's rank.
So I got 3. So 3 and 4 is 7. So squad leader is a lieutenant commander. Lieutenant commander.
Assign other officers rank. If any dice already in the pool are less than 4, change them to 4. 4. Okay, there's another 4. It's a building pool. You're like building this pool as you go. Then each other squad officer rolls the result of their own d6, and then you add all this stuff together.
All right. So I rolled a 5, so it's 4 plus 4 plus 5 is a 13, and that is a sergeant major.
Sergeant major. If your assignment came from field promotion, prepend brevet to your rank, you weren't trained as an officer, you'll be lucky if any other officers treat you as one. And there are enlisted ranks. Each enlisted non-officer squad member rolls or sets the result of a d6 and gains the rank equivalent to the result on the enlisted ranks table. You want to just roll for fun?
Oh yeah, I rolled a 6, so it's just a private. Yep, just a private. Yeah.
And then going to
I do love the admiral's note on this one, where it basically says a lot of these are not from one service. So it literally says, like, why would land infantry have a naval rank? Why wouldn't general be a part of command? And then the answer is, I think naval ranks sound cool. I think having a general for a CO sounds cool. I think ensign just sounds more like an enlisted rank, don't you? It says, feel free to do whatever you want, but I just picked ranks that sound fucking cool. And I'm like, that's good enough fucking reason for me.
I'm fine with that. I take no issue with that. So
yep, that's great.
So we assign rank, and now you'll select a role. Page 36. Your role helps define who your character wants to be and determines whether or not you advance after a session. You may either choose your role or randomly do the thing.
This is another EO. Yeah, I rolled a 4 and a 1. EO. Yeah, so I got even 1. So I got fearless. Describe a time you stood up for someone and how your refusal to back down aided them. Advance if you never retreated from a dangerous situation.
Well, I got odd 4. Warrior poet. Describe your favorite Sixarian author and their most famous book. Advance if you made a relevant quote from your favorite poetry, fictional or real, during or immediately following the combat.
What's your what's a quote from your favorite poet?
Listen, you command the body moves. You command the mind, you meet resistance. You know.
Okay, who's this?
Yeah, I did it. That's from Dune. I can quote a lot of Dune. I can quote a lot of Dune, and that's pretty much it.
Usually people have a bit more time to come up with a bit for it. Yeah, I definitely would be like ripping out some William Blake or whatever.
There's a character in Dune, and I've read it so many times that I'm embarrassed. I think it's Gurney Halleck, who is like a warrior poet who like strums on like a instrument and like quotes the Bible and like poetry and stuff during it. And you're like, you're an interesting guy.
Perfect. Okay,
we assigned roles, and now you get to select bond. Begin with a squad leader, and then go left. Each character chooses a bond. And that's page 37. Ryan, you want to roll for a bond you have with me?
Yeah, I got 4, 5, so even 5. So I got Daredevil. Describe a dare of mine that got you in enough trouble for command themselves to address the situation. Advance if one of us issued a dare and the other followed through. Select a new bond if the other chicken's out. That's funny.
Nice. I got odd 2, idolization. Describe something that you idolize about me. Advance if you try to be just like me. Select a new bond if you realize you have different strengths, and that's okay.
I do really like the roles and bonds, like really feeding into that, like, let's keep it narrative, let's add more bits to it. So I do like that emphasis that it's not just tactics and mechanics.
Yeah, I do too. I like the narrative aspect of this. The step 10 is create a squad nickname. Oh God, you said it earlier, and I didn't write it down because I'm an idiot. Ryan, create a squad nickname.
When did I say it?
I don't know, earlier. At some point, I was like, that's gonna be your squad nickname. I'm gonna remember that, and I didn't.
When I was talking about like the War Boys or what?
Yeah, something like that.
Future War Cult. I don't remember.
Little War Boys.
The Coup Boys. I don't know. The Little War Boys.
The Coup Boys. That was what it was.
The Coup Boys. COUP. We're saying there because we did coups. We coup people. We coup them.
We cooping.
We cooping out here.
Step 11 is outfit your Panther APC. Each squad is graded a Panther class armored personnel carrier for transport and reassembly. Design it. Page 38. Which we can probably design that right now. So the Panther APC, any squad member can drive the Panther. It fits up to 12. Doesn't matter because we only take 4 people and they're just going to keep respawning. The Panther has the following stats. It has 12 HP, which is a lot. 6 armor, which is a lot. It is bulky. 12 medium mount gunner weapons, and 12 seats. So you have a medium mount on there where you could mount a medium weapon. Panthers also provide the following functionality. DRS squad members may reassemble at the Panther. Drivers may also take a safe action to deploy a Panther. Allows any friendly soldiers, not just Panthers owning squad, to reassemble at it. Squad members may change their class trait and or resupply all of their consumable items. If your Panther is destroyed, you may always reassemble at a friendly facility vehicle pad. That would suck. Fucking bomb out your Panther, bro.
Yeah. Jess did say there's a typo in the top. It's not bulky 12 medium mount. It should be bulky 1 and then 2 medium mount gunner weapons, which makes more sense. Yeah.
Okay, so there's great. Gotcha. 2 medium mounts. Woo. We're
just gonna put 12 medium mountain guns on this thing.
I didn't think it was 12. I thought it was good. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
But that would be so great.
Each one person has their own mounted gun.
Their own gun.
The most ridiculous.
But there's only 4 people in it, so everyone gets 3.
And there's some roll tables to the side, such as turrets, mods you can add, all that good stuff. Do you want to
that was a chat reference. Yes, I will roll. Loadout precedents. Well, I think you would be the boss man. So you get to be our squad leader. So do you want me to roll turrets and you roll mods?
Yeah.
All right. I get a 6. So what's that?
6 on turrets. The Blizzard. Armor piercing rotary turret. 1d6 plus 1 damage. Arm points 7. For the mods, rolled a 1. Optical cloak. When the Panther is deployed, you may activate the optical cloaking. Enemies must come within 10 meters or successfully damage the Panther to reveal it. The cloak is restored 20 seconds, which is 2 turns, after the last instance of damage or the last enemy leaves proximity. Panthers cannot be cloaked while moving.
Dope.
Panther.
So you can drive up and like shield it if people are like trying to see and stuff. That's dope. I like that.
Yeah. And then the final step of character creation, which is select an initial class trait. Your class trait, page 39, indicates your primary combat capabilities and provides you with unique skill and equipment and arms you will use in the field. You may change your class trait anytime you reassemble. Yeah.
All right.
So pick one, Ryan.
I don't. Are you gonna go Jet Trooper?
Absolutely.
All right.
As my primary.
Yeah, my assumption in this is that we're just 2 of a 4-person squad. So I would probably start by going Force Recon.
Nice.
I like Force Recon.
I get to pick 2, and I get everything from the first one and just the class item from the second one. So I'm gonna pick Jet Trooper as my main, and then as my secondary. Wait, is it? Do I get the
Why
class
do you get to pick
weapon?
2? Did I miss something? Why did you get to pick 2?
Because I have the augmented synthesized.
That's right.
Thing.
Dope.
I'm paying attention, baby. I'm here. You know, I'm playing, building my character. Yeah, I would probably pick. I think the Force Recon. Let me see exactly what I got from that. But yeah, I think the Force Recon.
Yeah. Well, so Force Recon, I'll read this one. You may toggle to activate optical cloaking. If you move, roll precision +3 to avoid being visually spotted. If you remain stationary, no roll is acquired. You cannot be visually detected. If you take damage or fire a weapon, the high-speed nanoflex disrupts the cloak and it ends. The class weapon is a sniper rifle, and the class equipment is a proximity motion detector. I dig that like you like something has to be close enough to see you, or if you don't move, so like your equipment is literally like seeing if something gets too close to you. I really dig that.
So wait, is it so class items? Is that both the weapon and equipment?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you get. So
nice.
Each trait comes with a skill and 2 class items, a class weapon, and a class equipment. Yeah. So you're the class trait incorporates everything. Yeah, you get everything.
Nice.
So what's a Jet Trooper get?
So a Jet Trooper, you may use your jump jets to fly for up to 10 seconds. If you fly in combat, you take -1 precision for the rest of your turn. That makes sense. But you're also harder to hit while in the air. Gain damage reduction 2 during your flight and for the rest of your turn. Simple flights do not require rolling. You're going to roll precision to execute more complicated maneuvers, such as aiming mid-flight or carrying oversized cargo. I get a carbine as a weapon, 1d6, and then I've got some C4.
Ooh. Oh,
yeah.
Jess said because you have that proximity thing, you actually get the items from both, I think. So you could be a Jet Trooper with a sniper rifle if you wanted.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was going for. So
dude, that's what's up.
Get up high and yeah, that was my thing. So that's character creation, and it's cool. The next page takes us right into the next part, which is going to be advancement. Can be earned after each session of Planet. This allows you to replace your class weapon or class equipment on a particular class trait. After each session, consult the advanced if statement for your role and bond. Unlock 1 advancement of your choice if you complete your role, and 1 if you complete your bond. Very easy, fun narrative way to like level up and like to lean into who your character is and what they're about. Anytime you reassemble or resupply, you may change between any class items you have unlocked. That's cool.
That is really cool. Well, and you start with 2 classes, so you can unlock Force Recon stuff and Jet Trooper one and mix and match. That's a really
I'm the real
fucking
deal,
good one.
bro.
You are.
Yeah. A lot of cool stuff here. I think maybe my favorite, just narratively or just because, is the engineer's antimatter rifle.
That's dope.
Just because it sounds fucking cool, and you know, I'm thinking almost like a rail gun, almost like a laser, like an energy rail gun.
That would be dope.
Yeah.
They're really well done as far as like good for the class too. Like the Force Recon, your second one can be an SMG, so that's like if you want to get really close. But the scanning binoculars make so much sense. Like scan single squad is safe action. Like to learn HP, shields, armor, all that stuff. It's so good thematically for all that. Yeah,
I think that rolls us into principles of refereeing.
Yeah. So I'll just cruise through this pretty quick. So this is basically talk about the principles of refereeing. So it's not the principle of play, it's the opposite. So the Admiral's note: when in conflict, the principles outrank the rules. The rules provide a container in which you have a relatively predictable experience. All I can offer you without being there at your table. Sometimes your table will need something different. Don't be afraid to experiment. So the first is time is cheap, talk is golden. As indicated in the principles of play, time and the time and maps and distance sections, time and even space are quite flexible in Planet Fist. If the players choose to have a long conversation, that's fine. If they talk for 30 seconds in a 10-second round, not a big deal. Combat should flow. It's not supposed to meant to be clunky. You're supposed to really like be telling a story with a referee just giving you the mechanics and the roles needed as you go. It is a tactical game. And it boils down to 10 or more and a 2d6 and good things happen, 6 or less bad things happen. But otherwise, again, it's narrative. Keep the flow of the thing going. Tell me what you want. As indicated in the fiction first section of the principles of play, just say what you want. Don't say, I want to roll for X. Say, I want to do this thing, and then have the referee tell you if you even need to roll. So stop worrying about whether you need to roll or not, or choosing your actions based on what you can roll, because sometimes you might not even have to. Just do what you want. Mission objectives. To create a standard Planet Fist mission, choose one or more mission objective. There's primary objectives, and then there's secondary objectives. So choose from or roll 2d6 on primary mission objective table to determine that, and it can be major or minor, and the secondary objective is rolled on the minor targets table. So mission rewards, there's a couple that are good ones. Prios, we talked about that. A lot of the RR faction, the Tyrats, give Prios, like give and choose the different clearances that they get. That's a good reward. And unique items. You can also design unique items to give players, such as the Talon homing rockets from the cap and grab thing. So those are good items to give out. Notes on adjusting squad size. It basically says 4 to 5 is ideal. Less than 3, there's some adjustments to it, and threat size changes. Populating a facility. There's 1-point facility, 2-point facilities, hub facilities, and deploy. 1 is 2 on the standard threat table, 2-point facility, 2 on the standard threat table. The hub facility is 1 on the standard threat table and 2 on the major threat table. Place 1. So this is this whole referee section here is about populating facilities. There's a section on designing facilities, which is about reassembling distance and wave, sight lines, verticality, vehicles. There's a note here on enemy placement, which is really good. Again, all the notes are this entire thing. Such a great job of using those and incorporating those in.
Absolutely.
There's notes on.
They add a lot.
It's the design intent is so good, and they're written really, really well. Like, they're one of the highlights of this whole thing. Notes on maps and good reference steel. So this section I was talking about before, there's a link to outfit-tracker.com where it talks about maps. There's a section where it literally says, like, steal the PlanetSide 2 maps. If you're using a VTT, there's all of these things. So there's links, there's downloadable icons, there's like all sorts of stuff in this section, which is really, really good. There's a part on running a mission which talks about threats, enemy squads, friendlies, how do you incorporate those? Those are great. And notes on enemy movements and running combat. There's a whole section here on that. Again, all the notes are really well, but we're going to cruise through the referee section here a little bit. Triggers and insertion. It literally talks about triggers and insertion. Another good section. As I said, there's a note section here that says don't punish the players for success. It basically says, like, if they're doing really well, encourage them to keep doing well. Don't suddenly put like so many bad guys in the way that you stop the momentum, because that's not the point. Is the flow of combat. So don't just
Plus you want that every once in a while. You want that they're gonna get killed so much. You kind of want those cinematic action movie like time periods. Like, yeah, just have fun because you're gonna get slaughtered by like of your own design here soon. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a note here on emergent narrative. You might notice that the sample mission provided is light on details. It's because in the very quasi OSR like style, like you're not. This ain't fucking 5e. I didn't write a novel for you to play in it. Like, what we give you is locations and bad stuff to run into, but the actual play of the game, the story that evolves out of the game when you're talking about it later, is based on player decisions. Emergent narrative. That's the way to go. NPC items and tags. It talks about, again, like damage, per combat, glitching, unlinked items, all that stuff. Once again, it talks about that stuff. It has a breakdown of going through the first mission and how to put it together. The recommended opening of any first mission of a Planet Fist game goes like this. Again, numbered list. Fantastic. 1, make the squad and characters. 2, inform the players that they are trundling down the road in their squad's Panther. 3, play Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival on the best available speaker system. And let them know diegetically that it is playing in the Panther. Yeah. 4, narrate an incoming call from the squad CO. 5, have the CO brief them on the mission. And 6, ask the players whether they want to prepare surveillance, where they want to park, and get going. So basically it says start the game after you've made the squad in a Panther on the way fucking there. You get a call from the CO. The CO tells you what to do. You go there, you fucking do it. That's how to do it. It's great. There's a sample facility here, which when you download the links from the itch page, you get all these as separate links too. So it's not just in the sample. It's not just in the PDF. There's a sample mission. We don't go over adventures on here. Download the fucking book. Jess said another design goal for Planet Fist was to be the most indulgent game where I included every goofy thing I want, and the Fortunate Son bit was definitely the biggest example. I know there's a section later. There's a flavor section. Oh yeah, in the command console. You're gonna go over. Do you want to? You're taking command console.
Oh, command console. Yeah, this is. How do you want to go through command console?
I mean, you can just give an overview of what the command console is, or like just the different table. It's basically just a bunch of tables and resources for referees. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's it. It's a great resource. I think there is a sample mission, or is that 2 pages above? That's 2 pages.
No, that was 2 pages above. Well, in the command console, so there's a partial success in combat table. There's a partial success in healing and reviving table. There's a D6 insertion method, D6 threat objectives. Like I said, there's a D6 songs. Love those. Can you roll the D6?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trigger examples. One. So you got, okay, roll another one because it's already Fortunate Son from CCR is already on there.
Yeah. I rolled a 2.
You shook me all night long from AC/DC. I do like the mix here, though. It's not just that. They do have Queens of the Stone Age and 100 Gex on here, too. So a lot of good flavor here. Yeah, there we go.
The Creedence Clearwater Revival, and the next song, I must have 100 Gex.
Someone's passing the aux cord. There's a page on triggers. There's a whole page on minor threat and major threats, which is a big part of putting things together. There's threat blocks, assault team threat. There's like whole pages for like assault teams and blueberries and things like that. Basically, this is all just referee reference. It's just really, really good for building things. It's kind of like what's the whole like latter half of Fist, where it's basically just like a giant list of like tables. The
intelligence matrix.
Yes, this is kind of like the intelligence matrix throughout that. So that's great. And then that's the end. That's the game. Dad Rock. Yep. It's so funny that Dad Rock is a thing now. So yeah.
It's always been a thing. They just weren't all dads yet, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they weren't called Dad Rock. When we were young, it was just called modern rock.
Nope, that was still classic rock when I was young. So what are you talking about, buddy?
Well, yeah, I guess CCR and stuff is still classic rock. Yeah. Like, wait a minute. So people call Dad Rock classic rock? I thought Dad Rock was like late 90s rock.
Dad Rock is like 2001. Yeah, butt rock.
Yeah, you know? CCR isn't 2001.
Yeah, that's classic rock.
Yes. Okay. All right. We're on the same page. So, we briefly discussed this, and since Jess is here, we'll ask her. It's 60 pages, which is like right on the edge of zine versus book. So, Jess, do you want the full book scores, or do you want the zine scores? So, book is 5. Oh, I love Chevelle. And
Chevelle. Who loves Chevelle? They're two good songs.
Yeah, and they're really good 2 songs. Don't give those brothers shit. They're really good. My assumption is that Jess would like the full Monty here versus the score. So let's just go ahead and do that. So for those that are listening to for the first time, thank you. Second, for games, we do give scores and we give scores. We try to turn our shitty opinions into some type of numbers that can quantify what that means in the context of the game. There are 5 scores for full-size games and 3 for zines. For full-size games, the matrix, what word am I trying to say? Metrics, not matrix. There's art and layout. Each score can get up to 10. There's art and layout, which is literally the art, which is quality, quantity, and layout, which is just visually, not usability. It's just how well it looks. Usability is both digital and physical tools for using the game. It is if things are in like a good order in order to read them and things like that. It's how well you can actually use the material provided for you. The rule set is if it's a unique rule set. Do we like it? Is it good? If it's an adapted rule set, how well is it adapted? And it's good. Originality is a kind of across the board, whether it's lore, mechanics, art, like anything. Is there something about it that makes it feel more original than or more different than other things? And value is bang for your buck. What do you get for how much you put money in for? Are there a bunch of other resources for it? Is there a third-party license, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So, art and layout. Thoughts?
I do think.
Yes.
I think it's an incredibly readable layout. It's an improvement on the Fist layout. I think even I actually have Fist Ultra Edition open. I think even the font I like better. But
it has a higher. I think it has a bigger. What's it called? Like an X thing. Like the small letters are bigger compared to the big letters. If that makes sense.
Kind of. Listen,
something about fonts.
It's easier to read.
Yeah,
you're talking about things I know
also
is
saying
real,
though,
but
we really did love the Fist layout, so to improve on that even a little bit is who doesn't?
Yeah, and I think that I'm only comparing this to Fist because it is a very direct Fist-esque game, and it's very comparable. There's more like end page art. There's bigger art pieces in Fist. It's really incredibly readable. I feel pretty good about this one. What did we give Fist for art and layout?
I don't remember. I will say I do think that like since a lot of the stuff in it is schematics and stuff, like I think leaning into layout a little bit more than art a little bit more is kind of the go for this one. And the layout is, like you said, even an improvement on Fist and is really, really well done. Like even just like graphically in your mind, like I feel like I just read a sci-fi manual. You know what I mean? So I dig it. So let me find Fist real quick. Comparatively, art and layout got a 7 on this. I would be okay giving it like an 8-ish. I do think it is like just like maybe one step up. What are your thoughts?
I think the layout is better, but I think that the art is a step down. In that I don't know. It's hard because it has a lot of really good small in-page pieces, but there aren't any really big pieces. And there are some bigger pieces in Fist.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that some of the ones in, like I said, like part 1, part 2, or whatever it's called, they do have full page art done by Claymore that like has like more stuff to it. B's original art is so good. So I would be like one step down on art, one step up on layout. So
I think
even across the board, go 7. All right. I'm good with that. I do want to say though, the layout is really well done. If you're going to do a black and white layout, use this as a reference.
And listen, we complain about black and white layouts a lot, and this is a really great example of like a good use of black and white layout. You know?
Yeah. I think the worst thing is black and white 2-column with no breaks with bolds.
There's
or
a lot
boxes
of stuff
or anything.
to break up these pages. There's just like. The banners at the top and bottom, the little boxes to the side, some little art here and there. Like it makes it very, very easy to go through.
Well, and even when there's like a kind of like a wall of text in like the 2 columns, I feel like there's always like a note and a piece of art and something. So my brain can visually like bounce around if I want to get through a whole page. I never feel like I have to read like 4 pages in a row before nothing happens. So like it definitely helps the mind go forward a little bit. Usability. What else do we want?
There's not much more we can ask for. It's incredibly usable. It's in an order that makes sense to me. I know some stuff is a little bit repeated. but like other than that, I mean, it's hyperlinked to hell. It's bookmarked to hell. I mean, it's a pretty high score for me. What do you think about this one?
Yeah. So I think as far as usability goes, I do think that like one of your original critiques is something that did kind of stick out to me even a little bit more as I was reading it this time. I do think that there are sections in the how to play part where if you're gonna address that in some section later, could be thinned down and put into those sections.
Yeah.
So a lot of the what jumps in my head immediately is the breakdown of like the character traits, like assault, force, recon, and stuff like that. It's a paragraph of flavor for each one. I wouldn't mind if that was slimmed down a little bit and that paragraph of flavor was in the character section. So when I'm in the character section, I get all of that at one time.
Yeah.
So not that that's a terrible like lack of usability, but I think there were parts where I felt like in the flow of reading through it, those are the only parts that really bogged it down. But that doesn't affect a lot. It's just a point. And there were a couple parts where we said like the first time you introduce some things like war dice and stuff like that, and I know Jess already made a note about it, there's no real reference to where you're going to find the real rules for that. So there are just like a couple tiny little bits and stuff like that.
Usability is still pretty high for me though. Like I still think this is like a solid 8, you know?
8 is exactly, it's what I already had typed in here. So perfect. We're on the same page.
Oh, you were just going to decide? Okay.
No, I mean, it's what I had.
What do you think about rule set then, huh, Ryan? Tell me.
You know what? This is subjectively for me, this is the exact kind of game I really enjoy. I like tactical games. I like combat games, but I like when it's still very narrative. I love 2d6 mixed success. Anyone that's listened to this knows that I don't shut the fuck up about it. I really enjoy it. So for me, it is a hack of Fist, but it almost feels I like the compatible with this kind of bit because there's definitely a lot of references to Fist, but I feel like this is the kind of hack where it's like it's quote unquote a hack and it does take some stuff, but it really runs in a different direction and a lot of different ways for it, you know? So I really enjoy the rule set. I think that there's nothing that I think is missing that I want, and there's a lot of stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have thought that I enjoy being in here. Yeah. So, I mean, I dig it. I dig it all the way through. I would play this game in a heartbeat. What are your thoughts?
I like this rule set. I don't know if this is one that I'm like really dying to play. I think for me personally, there's too much going on here. But it doesn't feel needless. I like the use of like video gamey aspects brought into this and like and used well, you know, like it'd be really easy to pull in. It's like respawning or like that kind of control point thing and make it corny, but this is good. It is really good. And I think it achieves exactly what it sets out to do. I mean, it's well above average.
Yeah, it's well above average. I will say I do really like, there's like a small kind of but growing contingent of video gamey games that I really enjoy. Yeah. One, again, this is one that you didn't get to go over, but it was Slipgate Choke Point from Andrew Walter, right. based on oh my gosh, why is it completely breaking in my brain? Stay Frosty. Really, really great. And I know Hellpiercers from Sandy Bug is coming out, and that's definitely leaning more into like tactical narrative stuff. Yeah, it's great. I'm never gonna not like those. What are your thoughts on the rule set then? It is well above average. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any issues with the rule set or how it works, other than just personal preference. But I mean, who cares what I think personally? But this is like a good, solid game. I don't know. I think it's hard for me to say too, because it is an adaptation of another game. It's definitely its own thing, though. You know,
that's what I'm saying. Is it almost feels like it's a hack of Fist, kind of in name only. You know what I mean? Like it's a high no. It's a hacking name only. You know, I get what the like where the Fist is in this, but there's so much going on, and I'm like, this is this game's thing. You know, I would give it. I'm high 7, mid 8, you know, somewhere in that range. Yeah, I see, again, because subjectively I was about an 8 for this, so if you're good with an 8, I'm good with an 8.
Go for it.
All right. Originality. I think this is where it's going to be kind of like, I mean, every aspect of this, from the fact that it's a hack of another game to everything inspirationally in it, is just ripped, like every aspect
It's
of
a
it, not in a
spoof.
bad way. Yeah.
No, it's great. It's weird because like, it might lack, it might lower its originality score just because of the intent behind that score, but it's also kind of its strength. Like, it's funny to be like, yeah, it might fall off in originality a little bit, but like that stuff is really good in here. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think putting the stuff it puts together and the way it uses it is still more original than average. Like,
Yes.
what's a very average tabletop game? Not that we should call anybody out, but
I mean, we can. Our scores are out there. So we're talking about a 5 or a 6 on originality.
What was that one that's really, really popular right now? That's like a entry point to OSR from 5e.
Shadow Dark. I think that's what I was
Shadow
saying.
Dark.
Yeah. Hard
Like,
5.
A hard 5 on originality, right? This is more original than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's literally just a whatever. Gangs of Titan City got a 6, which I always felt was like a little harsh, but I think it's similar in the fact that it's like very clearly so much Necromunda that like, even though it's really well done, like it's not necessarily like breaking the mold.
Right, and this is Planet Side, which you've never played, but I think you can still play it, actually. I think it's still going. Correct me if I'm wrong, but...
Oh, I don't know. But yeah, like I said, I mean, like you said, it's a well put it's 100 pieces of other stuff put together in a very good way. Does that make it good? Yes. Does it make it original? So what are you thinking? Like a 6-ish?
I'm kind of thinking like a 6-ish for this one.
Yeah. And it is, again, like, even though it is kind of a hack, quasi-name only, it's still a hack of another system as well, too. Value-wise, so this game is still itch funding right now to the end of November. The goal, which I think might have bumped up, but like it's a $3,000 goal right now, and it's raised $2,856. 95% of the goal on 204. You know what I didn't do? I didn't do the whole intro in the beginning, talking about Jess and the game.
We didn't do the intro.
I didn't do any of that shit.
I didn't think about it either. I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, yeah. So the links don't come through in chat; they're just stars for everybody. So let me pin that up there real quick. Boom. Should have done that a while ago as well. So yeah. So it is itch funding right now. It is on Jumpgate Games. It's a small screen here. So jumpgategames.itch.io/planetside. The game jam is still going on, but right now you can get this entire thing for $8.
That's
60-page PDF, extremely well done. $8.
And I mean, they have a jam going on right now, which is going to generate like a bunch of content for it. And I mean, I think that's going to be $8. So that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. $8 even for the PDF of a 60-page, extremely well put together, well laid out, like very thought out game. Is an extremely good deal. So here it is. So I'm gonna drop a Discord link in chat, and we'll also throw that into the liner notes for the pod and the VOD and everything like that. So that way I'll have that reference for later. Actually, Jess, could you shoot me that in Twitter as well, and then I'll add that to the notes. So anyway, value $8, insane, fucking insane. The first time I started talking with Jess, I'm sorry, it's a lot for you. The first time I started talking to Jess, I was like, print? Are we gonna get this in print? Are we gonna get this in print? And then like $2,000 later, it was like, maybe we'll get this in print. But what were you saying?
I don't know. Like, I mean, $8 for this whole game, and you don't really need Fist to play this. It's not like this is its own game. It really is. I mean, that's a solid 8 or 9, I think, for value for $8 for the game. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just so in the context of like the bang for your buck you can get with other games, including, and there's a lot of links out to stuff. There's the character sheets, that's great. There's like, again, like all the adventure stuff you get as separate PDFs. And it is, open source or whatever. Game Jam will be happening. I will say $8 for the PDF is great. I wish there was a print. I will say like having the jam is great. But when we look at other games, like for example, like Merc Boards at 10 because the game is free. But it also has like 5 online generators. It has about 1,000 pieces of completely free material. So like I think like 7-8 for this as far as value is good, because I do think like being able to have a print copy increases, like, to me, increases the value for that. But like I think 7 to 8 is feels good for value on this. It's a great deal, $8 for the PDF, and as this is one of those ones where, like, you know, a year from now this could go up because we have a print value. The GM has 1,000 things in it, but I think right now I'm like 7 to 8. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm good with either of those, honestly. I think that's a good point. I'd like to see where it goes. I think, yeah, we could definitely bump it up, especially when there's more content floating around.
And like 7 is still a really, I mean, that 7 out of 10 is still a really solid score. So I think 7 on that looks really good. So this is where we're at. So 7 plus 8 plus 8 plus 6 plus 7 is a 36 for a game that is being, for a game that's being itch funded, that isn't even in print. That's a really, really solid score. And I honestly, this is one of those games, you know, sometimes we'll like give a game a score and it feels like it's a little bit high, or like we give game a score and it feels like it's a little bit low. Just, I feel like this is a game that is better than the sum of its, not even the sum of its parts. Like it's a 36, but in my mind, this is more like, it feels like a 38 plus, you know what I mean?
This is very much a you want to play a game, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, if we were doing a zine one and we did a vibe score, the vibes would be high for me. Like,
I'm glad we did this one as a book one, because I appreciate this more in like a level of a tabletop game. I mean, like, not that I have any issue with this game. I think it works really well, but it's just not what I would aim to play. But I think it's really good if this is what you're into. I think this is a great game. Yeah. You know?
Yep. Oh, in the context of other video gaming stuff, Spencer Campbell, 𝗣𝗟𝗓 RPGs, Spencer, might have been on the show. They're switching some of the mechanics up for stuff, but a lot of their stuff is very, very video gamey, which I really appreciate. The entire Lumen system, like Nova, this kind of reminds me a tiny bit of Nova a little bit too, in some of the aspects of like the video gaminess too. So another one that's a great one to check out if you're into the kind of video gamey lean of some games. Definitely check out all of that. So this has been Planet Fist from Jess Levine. I do to do a little bit more of intro into Jess, even though this is kind of an outro. Jumpgate Games is Jess Levine, or also known as Jess from Online. They put out Planet Fist, but they also put out a number of other games, including I Have the High Ground, which I have right here, the special edition of I Have the High Ground. Yeah. Great game. Great game. This is a collaborative 2-player game of dueling, banter, posturing, and capes. And then there's a number of games that they're either part of or put out that are very, I'm gonna say, maybe I'm wrong, Jess, but like really leans into Star Warsy stuff, like Going Rogue. Then there's a Scum and Villains expansion to Going Rogue. So definitely check them out on jumpgategames.itch.io for a lot of their stuff. I Have the High Ground is definitely really, really well received. You can check out a lot of that stuff on Indie Press Revolution. I think that's where I got my copy of it. But really, really fantastic stuff. Really, really enjoy the way that Jess writes, the way that she puts notes and things, the way that she explains games, and definitely has like a really, really fantastic grasp of game theory and how to communicate that to people. So they're just a really good person to check out as far as that from like a game design perspective as well. And I think that's what we got.
That's what we got. That's who we are, you know?
That is, you know what? That is, we're out here with the fist. So what do we have coming up? I don't know. Let's look at the calendar.
This is the last episode ever, guys. Sorry.
Yep. We're done. Bye. No. So we have an exciting episode coming up Tuesday morning. We're going to be doing an interview with 𝗣𝗟𝗓 Games. Very, very excited about that. We're going to be talking about, I won't give it away too much. You'll see the promo tomorrow. A game that 𝗣𝗟𝗓 Games is coming out with very soon. I believe it's going to be in Q1 next year. And really excited about that one. It's interesting. They've been talking about it a lot. If you've seen any of their social media, you'll see what it is. And I'm really, really excited to talk about that. After that, we have Thanksgiving. And I think our next actual review episode will be next Monday. And we're going to be doing Cyst from Gemzilla.
fun game to look at, just pretty, you know.
Very, very excited because Sist is a very small game, so we'll probably go through a lot of the other Gemzilla books too that are based on Sist. So really excited for that. So that's what's coming up through the rest of November. December, we're going to pack a lot of stuff into 2 weeks, take some time off, and do another year in review. And that'll be it for the year. So that has been Planet Fist. Jess, thank you so much for being in chat. Super appreciate all of that. For those listening, again, thank you. Really appreciate that. And find all our stuff on our Linktree /The Weekly Scroll. Hunter, you have a wonderful night. And everyone out there, bye.